Welcome, everyone. This is the second annual NotHallOfFame.com Mock Pro Football Hall of Fame Committee. They might not be transparent, but we are. We are going to be voting as if we are the committee for who we believe should be the 25 semifinalists advancing through. Now, going forward, I've asked everyone to put forth their choices. So that way we can we can trim the fat right away. So I'm just going to share my screen with everyone. I assure you that there's nothing bad on my screen. We actually got rid of something a little bit earlier before we went on, which will just stay an internal joke between us all. Okay, so share screen.
Doing the Excel sheet like last time?
Yeah, I've got it all in an Excel sheet. So let me know when you can all see that. Hopefully you can.
I don't see it just yet.
Don't see it just yet? Okay. If not, then I'll just sort of like read off who we won't be talking about because we've got quite a few who received no votes. I thought it'd just be easier just to show everyone as we do that rather than sort of edit that in later. All right, share screen, desktop, share. All right, so it's not quite going through. That's okay. Anyway, we got Evan here, so I'm just letting him in. So I'll just read off those who are not going, who did receive no votes at all, as we're just sort of going through that. So the following did not receive a vote of any kind. Evan, welcome. How you doing?
Good. Sorry about that, guys. I had karate and then a child issue, so apologize for
all
the
good.
delay.
All good. We're just literally starting right now. So I'm just reading off those who received 0 votes. So quarterbacks: Jake Delhomme, Boomer Esiason, Jeff Garcia, Dave Craig. Running backs: Ernest Biner, Steven Jackson, Thomas Jones, Eric Metcalf, Brian Westbrook. Wide receivers: Troy Brown, Joe Horn. Bit of a surprise for me: Chad Johnson, Derek Mason, Musin Muhammad, Andre Rison. I guess because we didn't have anyone representing TLC here, so I guess that's why that happened. Thank you.
Or Lisa Lopez.
I feel like they would be less likely to support. They would have negative votes with TLC involved.
That's possible, yes. Well, maybe you feel guilty after you burn down a house. I don't know. And Wes Welker. Tight ends: Dallas Clark, Ben Coates, Heath Miller, Wesley Walls. Offensive linemen: Matt Burke, DeBerkishaw Ferguson, Jordan Gross, Jake Long, Jesse Sapolu, Chris Snee, Eric Williams. And on the defensive side, Casey Hampton, Michael Dean Perry, Greg Townsend, Teddy Bruschi, Seth Joyner, Takeo Spikes, Dre Bly, Alan Rossum, Asante Samuel, Troy Vincent, Nick Collins, Merton Hanks, Tim McDonald, Bob Sanders, and in special teams, John Cassay, Ryan Longwell, Matt Turk, Reggie Roby, Jeff Feagles, Josh Cribbs, Brian Mitchell. None of them will be advancing at this point. We actually, last year when we did this, we had an automatic one we didn't even talk about in Peyton Manning. We have one that was unanimous. It might not be who you would think. It's Torrey Holt. So can we all sort of agree that Torrey Holt is one of our 25?
Absolutely.
Got no problem with Torrey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
There's no
Sure
issue
thing.
with Torrey Holt at all. Whereas Isaac Bruce was great in terms of overall longevity, Holt, many would argue, was the better receiver himself.
Okay. All right. So Torrey Holt is advanced automatically. What we did last year and we found that worked is we sort of took a sandwich approach where we're just sort of like voting everyone through from the top and then eliminating those from the bottom. So I thought at this point we could look at the ones who received at least 1 vote from everyone and see if there's anyone that anyone wants to make a Hail Mary for. Sound good?
Definitely.
Okay. So quarterbacks, we've got Randall Cunningham and Steve McNair.
Only
I'd like to do
one
for-
vote.
Only 1 vote.
I like to do that for Steve McNair if I could.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
Who didn't vote for him? I voted for him, and I'm not a huge Steve McNair fan. Nobody else voted for him.
I think it's just because of the 25.
I'm kind of surprised that there's no one else for Cunningham, considering his Burt Bells and the PFWA MVP.
Mhm.
Can I say something about McNair?
Yeah, please.
Go.
Yeah, definitely.
Or can
Floor's yours,
you hear
Jeremy.
me?
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, last week's episode of the Football's Family Podcast, I did a whole thing on Steve McNair. His numbers will not come out and surprise you because he was playing a very conservative offense with Jeff Fisher, but he had about 31,000 yards passing. He was a dual threat quarterback when they were starting to become a thing. But his toughness, his willingness to put his body on the line and play through pain helped the Titans from the time that they moved from Houston to Memphis to Nashville, helped them to become the team that we see today. Without McNair playing from the late 90s to early 2000s, the Titans would not be the team that they were. Because somebody say it was because of Eddie George. Steve McNair was the heart and soul of that team. So if you're looking at pure numbers, McNair is not going to jump off the page. But what I understand about the Hall of Fame, and I've been there before, like many of you probably have, a lot of those players didn't have the numbers, but they were the heart and soul of that team, the MVP of that team. Not only that, but he did share an MVP with Peyton Manning. So that should tell you something about the man.
May I push in for Cunningham?
Yeah, please. I was just going to actually ask if anyone wanted to do that.
Yes. Randall Cunningham is something that's always a case that's always intrigued me, considering that the Burt Bell Award, for instance, is the MVP award voted on by coaches and team executives. He has had 3, which is the most of anyone else besides the only one that's had as many is Peyton Manning with the exact same number. Not only that, you said, Jeremy, that, well, Steve McNair was someone that continued to popularize the idea of the dual threat quarterback. But Randall Cunningham was someone who innovated and pioneered that idea. Even though he wasn't the first, he definitely increased his popularity. And plus, with 3 MVPs, basically from the players themselves and the coaches themselves and the executives, plus also the Pro Football Writers of America also gave him an MVP. He was someone that truly changed the game and transformed the way that people saw offenses and how to attack them on defense. I think that alone, considering everything we know, and plus he's still involved with football to this day, I think it's a really strong case for making Randall Cunningham a member of the semi-finalists. And especially he was a semi-finalist last year, so why not?
Okay.
For us.
So let's just table those two. We've got 4 running backs who received at least 1 vote, and we'll have the same discussion. Lorenzo Neal, Jamal Lewis, Priest Holmes, Larry Centers.
If Jack was here, he'd push as hard as he possibly could for Lorenzo Neal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could try and do my best Jack impression. I'm the one person who voted for Priest Holmes, but I'll do my Lorenzo Neal here, who came very close to me, but was not someone I voted for. We're in an era now where there aren't that many fullbacks remaining. They're not in the true sense of the word. Very few teams use them. But the last probably great fullback there was in terms of an actual blocking back who could make some catching and had some good hands out of the backfield is Lorenzo Neal. I don't have Jack's numbers in front of me, but I know that he was the lead blocker for like 6,000 or 7,000 yard backs as part of it. And he was integral part of, just ask LaDainian Tomlinson how important Neal was for him.
Right.
So an integral part of those Chargers teams. He was also with the Cincinnati teams. I wasn't prepared to do this one off the top of my head. I have my one guy, of course, as you know, Kirk. But Lorenzo Neal is someone who, if we're ever gonna look at a fullback again from the modern era, it's pretty much Lorenzo Neal or bust.
Okay.
Or Mike Allstott.
Or I guess Allstott too.
Yeah, and we're going to get to Allstott because he did receive a little bit more support as we'll sort of see going forward. Can we safely then eliminate at this point Jamal Lewis, Priest Holmes, and Larry Centers?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so they are out. So we have 3 wide receivers with at least 1 vote. 3 really good ones, but this is the amount of wide receivers on this group is just filthy.
In the class already.
Oh
Yeah.
So
Could I make the case for Anquan?
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet?
Yeah,
Not there just yet.
Anquan received quite a few votes, so like we're not.
Okay.
Yeah, so like he's actually.
All right.
Yeah, so we're just looking at all the people right now with just the one vote, and then it's just seeing if we're going to eliminate some people right now.
Okay.
I will say, Kirk, sorry to step in. I will
No,
say
please.
wide receivers, I thought, which I'm sure we all had this feeling, was the most difficult because
God,
they're the largest group of guys that you could easily make an argument for. Like Wes Welker is somebody that you mentioned didn't receive any votes, even from me, who was a hardcore Patriots fan, who had the first 300-yard reception seasons in a row. So for me, I ended up feeling like you could make an argument literally for probably 10 receivers, and then thinking at the end of the day, only 5 of these guys are getting in.
Mhm.
So if you're not a top 5 wide receiver, I didn't include you on my ballot for 25. Even though I think an argument could be made for a lot of those guys being included in this group, if there didn't seem to be any path for them to advance beyond this, I personally didn't include them. And that was just my criteria. And just while I have the mic for a second, in case any of my fellow Patriots fans are watching this, I swear I thought I did cast a vote for Ben Coates. And I would have been happy to make an argument on his behalf. So that will have to wait till next year.
Did you see the number of Patriots I have on my list?
I got quite a few as well.
Well, so
Does it also have Bruce?
Well, I was going to say, so the 3 wide receivers at this stage are Donald Driver, Rod Smith, Jimmy Smith. And I think to Dan's point, it is such a loaded wide receiver class. I hate cutting all 3 of these guys right now, but
I would.
I was big on
like I
wanting
say,
to.
I don't
personally,
have
none of them made my top
dogs
5
in the hunt
receivers.
Mhm.
But I think especially Jimmy Smith and Rod Smith, they both have the stats to be Hall of Famers.
but but with this group though, so it's not necessarily
Agreed.
that we don't think that they're Hall of Famers. It's we have to pair this to 25, which is excruciatingly hard. I think I used that word right.
Agreed.
Yeah, and just cutting. At some point, we do have to cut some people off. Are they?
I think Tom had something to say.
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah, obviously I don't have too many dogs in this hunt, so to speak, from being a Broncos fan. But Rod Smith is one that I'm obviously the only one that voted for him. And I guess I would just like to take a moment to say just a couple things that I really think is going to maybe help us in the long run when we're actually deciding on the final few that actually get in. And that has to do with a lot of times we look at all pros and we look at these lists of anniversary teams and we look at the all decade teams and we start to use that as a decision-making process. But from my perspective, and I think some people could probably agree with me, is all pros, these voters obviously get them wrong sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the snowball effect that occurs from getting that wrong, whether it's positive or negative, has an effect on all of these candidates for the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, I mean, I've only met you, some of you today, and some of you know me from the last time. I had a very passionate pitch for Tom Nalen, who's not in this particular nominee, which I'm surprised.
Biggest snub.
But I'm going to use him as an example, but I'm not going to rant and rave. But what I'm going to say is that if somebody gets it wrong early on, so 1998, Tom Nalen, I can go through everything that I have researched. Tom Nalen should have got that first All-Pro of his career in 1998. Dermotty Dawson got it from name recognition only, in my opinion. If you look at the production that happened that year with TD and everything, he's probably getting that first 1998 All-Pro. And if he does that, he probably gets it 99 second team All-Pro. He probably beats out Mawai for getting Landis Gary to the same production as Curtis Martin did in 99 with 4 less games. So you think about that, he's probably got 3 in a row. He gets another one again in 2003 that he gets, and then probably in 2005 he gets a name recognition one at the end of his career. So you get 5, and I'm not saying that he would have got that. I'm saying hypothetically speaking, if he got that 1998 one that he deserved, this could have had a snowball effect for him to have potentially 5 All Pros. Then does that mean he gets onto the All-Decade team and with all of his Super Bowl victories, what he did for the game long term, where he, they're still using the concepts that team had for those years on the zone blocking scheme today. Is he going to get into one of those 100 anniversary teams? I don't know. What I'm saying is we can look at all pros all day long. We can look at the 50th anniversary teams, or 100 anniversary teams, or 75th anniversary teams. I mean, all decade teams. But what I really would like us to focus on is things that doesn't happen to doesn't come around because someone voted one way or another early in their career. We need to look at, did this player help their team to the ultimate goal? Were they integral in their team winning a Super Bowl or 2 Super Bowls? Was this player as good as their peers at the time, or as good as their peers that are already in the Hall of Fame? Were they ever the best player in the at their position when they played? These are the things that we need to think about when we look at whether or not they should be in the Hall of Fame, not voting awards. I'm going to put those aside for now. So when I think about Rod Smith, he doesn't have a ton of awards. People kind of forget about him. You got voters that probably never even watched him for the most part, because I mean, I've seen reports where they've never even seen some of these players play, which I don't know if it's true or not, but there's reports out there that says that some of the East Coast guys never even watched the West Coast teams because they were on too late. So we have an opportunity here with everybody who was a fan of their team. And yes, we're going to be passionate about it, and we're going to really push for them. But the great thing is we know these players. We've watched them. We've researched them. Maybe we're passionate, but we have more knowledge than somebody from the outside that's casually watched this. So when you think about Rod Smith, yes, his accolades are not of Torrey Holt's caliber, but you also have to understand he was in a run-first offense.
Yeah.
So that his stats were a lot harder to come by than a Torrey Holt who Peyton Manning was throwing as many times as he could a game. For 2 years, I would argue he was probably the best receiver in the NFL, and that was in 2000, 2001. He may not led in yards. He did lead 1 year in receptions. He was always up there in the top part for touchdowns, touches, yards per game. He got 3 Pro Bowls out of it, but he was an integral part in a Super Bowl victory. He had an 80-yard reception, 157 yards, I believe, receiving in a Super Bowl victory in 98. So he was an integral part of helping that team win a Super Bowl and get there in 97. And on top of that, I would argue that his blocking ability to spring all of those 1,000-yard rushers and Terrell Davis for 2,000 yards was key in that offense. So those you don't even see those in stats, right? And he also actually has the stats too. He came in as an undrafted free agent. He didn't get to play the first 2 years, so he's not accumulating those stats yet. He's still, when he retired, was still one of the top career stats wide receivers, not the top of the top, but pretty dang close to the top 10 in most categories.
He shared time with Ed McCaffrey, Shannon Sharp, Terrell Davis. I mean, that's 3 people right there that took a lot of touches and a lot of receptions and a lot of touchdowns away from him. And yet, you're saying 2 years, for 5 years, he had an incredible run. Yep. And I would say that they should have won the Super Bowl in 96 as well, if it wasn't for the Jaguars that year. And Rod Smith was part of it. So I could see Rod Smith being in the Hall of Fame. If you're looking at it, it's like with Terrell Davis and Gale Sayers. If you're looking at a small window of how great they were, Rod Smith fits that perfectly.
Well, I also, but my opinion, Joe, to your point too, his career, especially the strength of his career, was from mid 90s to the mid 2000s, which eliminates him from all decade teams for either. If his career had been a little neater in terms of 2000 to 2010, he's in. I was just looking at some of the wide receivers that made the Pro Bowl over him his first huge year, because it was kind of out of nowhere. And it was Irving Fryer, Yancey Thigpen, Andre Rison playing for the Chiefs. But he had 8,000-yard seasons. And that's no joke. He had 2 championships. And I made a note to myself. He didn't, as I said, he didn't make my top 25, not because I didn't think he was one of the 25 best candidates, but because I cut myself off at 5 wide receivers and didn't put him in there. I made a note to myself, though, that said no argument next to Rod Smith, because I would have no problem with him advancing.
And let's face it, too, for a couple of those years, he had Brian Greasy as his quarterback. I'm sorry. Right. I mean, I love Brian Greasy, as a Broncos fan. He contributed, but he's not Peyton Manning. I mean, I could look at Reggie Wayne's stats, and we could talk about that all day. I mean, people loved watching that offense with Peyton Manning and Reggie Wayne catching those balls. But I would argue that as an important part of a team that excelled, and as an individual contributor on the offense that he had to play on, he is as valuable or more than Reggie Wayne is. And I know Reggie Wayne's going to go to the wire here. I guarantee he's going to be one of the final people that we cut, if we even cut him at all. But I would argue that Rod Smith's career was arguably better based on the circumstances he was in and what he had to play under.
Okay, so at this point, can we keep Rod for now and eliminate Driver and Jimmy?
I think even though I was big for Jimmy in the past, at the same time, I do agree on Tom on literally all of his points. In case you guys don't know, I am someone who's not a slave to only listening to the Associated Press when it comes to their all pros. I think just focusing on just Associated Press alone and not looking at all these other publications or all these other people is very, very foolish. Like, what makes the opinions of these very few individuals superior to the opinions of others just because they have the term AP in their title? BS, in my opinion. Also, another thing that I would say is what Rod Smith had was what I call the Reuben Brown effect. That means you played from the back half of one decade and the front half of another decade, and that leads to not being available or appearing in any all-decade teams as a result because of that situation. Reuben Brown had a total of 9 Pro Bowls during that entire stretch, but because he had to play in the back half of one of the 90s and the front half of the 2000s, he never appeared on any all-pro, all-decade list as a result. And I see a very similar case with Rod Smith. I would have no issue advancing Rod Smith personally. Okay. Tom, I think you have another Tom Nalen here, especially with him not here. Also, I'm so sorry.
I've got to at least go with Rod for as long as I can. I have no illusions that he's going to end up making it probably at the final, but we got to give him.
But that's what we're all here for. I mean, just to get a different perspective. So
that's important.
Let's just keep Rod and the naked guy wants to come back. He's not. Evan, I got to tell you after. But anyway.
Okay, I clearly missed something.
You're very fortunate, actually.
You're lucky. You're lucky you missed it.
Yeah.
All right.
And so, just with all due respect to Mr. Driver and Jimmy Smith, they're out at this point. Okay. We had one vote for Brent Jones. Anyone want to stump for Mr. Jones?
This is the only tight end who got a vote, by the way.
Yeah,
he got one.
Yes. And I do apologize. I'm not sure who it was because we had a couple people who voted who were not able to attend. So, all right. So I'll take that silence as Mr. Jones is out. We've got 3 offensive linemen with 1 vote. Olin Kreutz, Brian Waters, and Kevin Glover. All right. I'll take that as we'll make that one easy. 2 defensive ends, the Justins, Tuck and Justin Smith.
Smith could have a decent case, and Tuck was someone that many people, especially on Twitter, would argue deserve those Super Bowl MVPs over Eli Manning. But objectively, I can't see them as the top top 25. I just can't.
Okay.
And as a Giant fan, I didn't vote for Tuck either, but I would tend to agree with, especially the first Super Bowl, especially in 42. He really was one of those situations where maybe there you go. Maybe the Giants, maybe the same here. Maybe the Giants defense could have, collectively won the MVP in that 42 Super Bowl, but Tuck, it felt like, was in the backfield. He was on Tom Brady's butt almost every play, especially late in the game. So, yeah, not a Hall of Famer, probably not even a finalist, but based on a couple of big game performances, you can make a case for some level of greatness for Justin Tuck.
Yeah, I would argue that as well for Tuck. I always loved his face mask.
But not a top 25 guy, though, at this point, we can say? Okay.
No.
I was the only person apparently to vote for either of those guys. I voted for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Tuck, I actually feel more strongly about. And as a Patriots fan that lost both of those Giant Super Bowls.
I don't believe that those Super Bowls existed, Dan.
I can say that personally, I thought Tuck could have and should have gotten MVP for both of those games. He was unstoppable at times, and the Patriots have a good interior offensive line, obviously for years. Tuck had over 100 tackles for loss. He was a key point in 2 championship teams. He had 66 sacks, I believe, as a defensive tackle, and he was a game changer. And so to me, just in terms of pure impact, without Justin Tuck, the Giants don't have either of those championships. And I don't think any of these guys that a ton of guys that we cut off the list or that I didn't include on my personal list, either were great players for a short period of time or were very good players for a long period of time. Tuck probably falls more into dominant for a short period of time, but he did manage to have some longevity. He played for 11 years, averaged over 6 sacks a year, 2 Pro Bowl appearances. And like I say, personally, he would have gotten my vote for 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So I also did vote for Smith. I did not feel as strongly about it personally. More the numbers justified that than my feelings about him as a football player. But I do think Tuck is worthy of consideration. And not to mention, he freed up a ton for what the rest of the guys did there. So like Michael Strahan.
All right, so let's keep Justin Tuck for now.
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't mind it. I think that's a good case. Like I said, I grew up a Giants fan. If I were to do it my own personal way, I'd put Tiki Barber as a
we're getting to him. We're gonna get to him.
Oh, I would, but I didn't vote for him personally. I need to stay as fair as possible.
Yeah, just to keep moving on. So we have 4 linebackers, and I'd love to hear a case for some of these. So I hope that we'll be sharing some of that. We got Lance Briggs, Hardy Nickerson, London Fletcher, and Willie McGinnis. Does anyone want to make a case for any of these people?
So I vote. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say London Fletcher does have a decent case based on longevity and just terms of being someone that played every single game. And what I remember him saying was that he was an alternate for like 11 or 10 or 11 Pro Bowls. He made a joke about that. I forgot what he said, what he compared it to. But, if the thing with the Pro Bowls is, even though I do kind of like 50-50 on them when it comes to an honor, like if someone decided to opt out, he would have been in place. But because that person didn't opt out, he was named only 4 Pro Bowls as opposed to potentially even greater. If he had that number of Pro Bowls, if those people decide to opt out, would he be further in this discussion right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one that voted for London Fletcher. Again, this is to advance him to the 25. In my generation, I would consider him maybe one of the most underrated defensive players. Nothing else based on probably, like you said, consistency. He's always been there for the team. If nothing less on my fantasy IDP league, I always knew I could count on the guy to go forward, right? But I'm just saying, I don't know if he's going to be making it beyond any 25. But as far as maybe underrated, I didn't know that, Vinny, about the alternate for however many years it was. I mean, I would see why he was considered an underrated player on maybe not that great of teams for most of the time.
An absolute
Yeah,
tackling
no
machine, though.
He
Yeah.
has over 2,000 tackles, which I think he's only one of like a 4 guys that have that. Like, and he also played in 256 consecutive games, starting 215 of them. And yes, that is the all-time record. Like, he is literally the Jim Marshall of linebackers, though people would argue potentially he might be even better than him. But at the same time, Marshall has a lot of this is what it says. He was named a Pro Bowl alternate 11 times during his career.
That's crazy.
And he didn't play one until the 2019. So for 11 seasons, this guy, if someone decided to opt out, he would have been a Pro Bowler. And he called himself the NFL version of Susan Lucci. In case you don't know who she is, Susan Lucci was an actress who was known for All My Children for a long time. It was a soap opera, lasted for a very, very long time. I think it lasted like 40 years or something. And she didn't win an Emmy until 1999 after being nominated a total of 19 times. So, yeah, he is the Susan Lucci of the NFL. And, you know, if he managed to get at least some of those Pro Bowls during that time, I guarantee you Lennon Fletcher would be on more people's semi-finalist lists.
All right, so let's keep Fletcher. And does anyone want to make? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I do think I'm totally fine with London Fletcher going through. Even though I didn't vote for him, he was another guy that I'm
It's a hard cut for
totally
me too.
totally in agreement with. But I did want to make a case for Willie McGinnis. Willie McGinnis, I will admit bias up front, is literally my favorite player of all time. And he was drafted by the Patriots when they were possibly the worst franchise in all of the NFL. He was the key to them becoming a great defense. He played in 4 Super Bowls. He won 3. He is the NFL's all-time sack leader in the postseason. He is the NFL's all-time Super Bowl sack leader. He was a dominant player with the 96 Patriots that went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Packers. He then got coached by Pete Carroll. He played a position called elephant, which Pete Carroll had invented, and got Willie McGinnis to put on a ton of weight. Then Belichick switches him back where he's playing sort of a hybrid edge rusher, defensive end. And he was one of those, if you watch the Patriots' first Super Bowl, his only job was to hit Marshall Faulk every play, whether he had the ball or not. And he just took him out. And it was domination. Marshall Faulk was the best player in football at that time. And Willie McGinnis took him out of that game. So he was, to me, more than any other Patriots player, he was the face of those first 3 championship teams. And his numbers in the postseason speak for themselves. He was a big game player. He had a great career, 86 career sacks, despite not being a rusher. That was not even close to his primary responsibility. So I feel strongly that he has been overlooked, like a lot of Patriots, because, or as the years have gone by, people are under the assumption Tom Brady was responsible for those first 3 Super Bowls as well, which he was definitely more of a complementary piece at that point. That was a defense first organization. And to me, Willie McGinnis was the face of that defense. So to me, I feel extremely strongly about him being included.
I put him to the side myself. I'm someone that, like you, feels very, very strong about those Patriots. Like I've even told Kirk myself, my list of like that era of Patriots it's very, very long. It has like 10 people on there at the very least, like 10, 12. Hell, I even have Dante Scarnecchia on that list in terms of just impact. But yeah, I would definitely put McGinnis over to the side, though I'm not as strong as him as other Patriots or even defensive ends, though I am down with that idea of just at least putting him in consideration.
We'll keep. Oh, go ahead, Evan.
I was just saying, I think Daniel's been trying to say something. I just want to make sure we get everyone in since there's so many of us. So,
yeah, just real quick. I was the only vote for Nickerson. I remember him just growing up in those sort of late '90s, early 2000s time as being a really good linebacker. I think I'm seeing here 5 Pro Bowls, couple All Pro selections. Not a pass rusher, but a guy who led the league in tackles one year. He was kind of part of some really good defenses, first with Pittsburgh and then later with Tampa. He left Tampa before they made their Super Bowl, but he was kind of one of the early guys along with Sapp and Brooks and some of those other guys. So I don't know that I necessarily feel super strongly about it, but I just remember Nickerson being one of the most solid linebackers in the NFL in that mid to late 90s period. So I was the one vote for him.
Okay. With Briggs, this was somebody who would have been my next 25. I always felt he was completely overshadowed by Urlacher, but I wish we had a Bears fan.
Jack would be pounding the table for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. What
Jack?
Jack?
I'm sure Jack was the one that voted for him. I like Lance Briggs. I don't like him enough to move him along. I think he benefited from being next to Urlacher.
Yeah, and I live in Chicago, so I mean, daily Bears news is a part of my life here, and I kind of agree. He's always lived under the shadow of Urlacher. But with that said, when we talk about the Bear greats here at linebacker, his name never really gets mentioned. It's almost as in I would say a sidekick role. And I don't even know if there is such a thing in football, but to me, he's never listed as among the greats out there in terms of Bears. When you think Bears linebacker, Briggs doesn't really come to mind. It's always Urlacher first.
Okay, so should we look at, we have Briggs, Nickerson, and McGinnis. Do we just vote to keep one alive at this point?
Yeah, I would say one. I would personally vote to put one alive. Also, just curious, are you able to share the Excel sheet?
I've been trying to. It's not letting me.
I could probably share if you wanted to.
Okay, yeah, because
except you disabled screen sharing. So
I did.
Yeah.
Oh,
just make me co-host.
Okay.
Let's just vote. To see
we'll vote and go from there.
Okay. All right. So from that, I'll just go from what I have it here. Darren, I'll start with you.
I would say probably keep McGinnis on there if you're going to keep any of them.
Okay. I'm going to go with Dan's plea on that. I'm keeping him too. Arnie?
Yeah, I agree. McGinnis.
Chris?
Yeah, I'd go with McGinnis as well.
Vinny? Vincenzo?
I'm in unison here. I personally go with Willie McGinnis. I mean,
okay.
Vassell even said that he was akin to the many other great defensive ends at that time. I'm going with Willie.
All right. Should we just say, should we just sort of go with that at this point?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So
once we get through the ones, do screen sharing. I'll show you what I have here. So
okay. Or you know what I'll do? I'm just I'm gonna isolate that and I'll just email that to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll do that. And yeah, so we have 4 corners or 4 defensive backs to look at this point. We've got Eric Allen, Antonio Cromartie, Albert Lewis, and Adrian Wilson.
I don't feel strong about any of these folks.
Move along, Kirk. Move along.
All right.
Wayne, do you have an Eric Allen?
What's that, Evan?
I said, do you have an Eric Allen, seeing as you're the Raiders guy?
Yeah, I gave him a vote, but after I did that, I thought about it. he was good with us for a short period of time. So I'm always looking at longevity. And he wasn't our best corner at that time. So, I wouldn't argue to keep him on there.
Okay. Just figure. I just want to give. You've been quiet. I want to make sure.
Yeah,
we give the Hall of Famer some time here.
He's very humble.
Yeah, well, I've got some opinions on all these cats, but I've seen them over the years. So, but I'm liking the way this is going, as far as eliminating guys and keeping everything moving.
Yeah, we keep it all transparent.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. I think we're good then.
All right, so let's just go right back up here to the top. I think before you got here, Evan, the only unanimous was Torrey Holt.
No, I was here for that.
You were here? Okay. All right. So we had two people who received all but one. So let's see if we want to put them through without any further discussion. It's Reggie Wayne and Richard Seymour.
Those are two easy yeses for me.
Same here.
Definitely.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. No
Yeah.
problem.
Right.
We need to put Reggie Wayne through just so if we can do the finalists one, Jack is here just so we can rip on Reggie Wayne. So.
All right. We had three that received all but two votes. Tony Baselli, Jared Allen, Zach Thomas.
Put them all through, especially Zach Thomas at this point. I don't want Dolphins fans to threaten people anymore.
That's surprising. That surprises me.
What surprised you?
Thomas got a bunch of votes last year from our group. Obviously, it's a bit of a different group this year. But Zach Thomas was, if I remember correctly, was almost a shoe-in last time.
He was the fifth person we voted in and didn't get in our final group because not everybody voted for him.
I remember that, but I mean, at the very first, like we're doing today, it was that he was one of the top vote getters. It's just surprising. That's all. Baselli
Everyone wants Zach
surprising
Thomas
too to me. But
I did not vote for Baselli.
I'm just shaking my head. Like that's
say that one time, Dan. You said you didn't vote for Baselli?
I was just saying I didn't vote for Baselli. I did not feel super strong about it. It was actually similar to what I did at wide receiver, where I thought easily a case could be made for him. I picked 5 offensive linemen and made a cutoff there, and he was not one of my top 5 offensive linemen.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who the third person was. So it was Baselli, Zach Thomas, and who was the third person?
Third person was Jared Allen.
That's surprising me too.
I am not a Jared Allen guy at all, but I can understand him getting to the final 25. I'm not going to fight it.
I personally voted for him, but I'm not very passionate about Jared Allen because, Allen's the guy that made the finals last year, but it's that's not really one of the people like Zach Thomas. I think that one I'm very passionate about. Jared Allen, I just don't really feel it as much as some others.
But at this point, is there any impassioned plea not to have any of these three in the top 25?
No, all three of them should.
Okay. All right, Evan, I just sent you something.
Oh, you did. Hold on.
Okay. So while we're doing that, we'll just look at the ones who received 10, and then we'll ask the same question. I might have a plea on to take one of them out, but
oh yeah, you and I have the same one, I think, again.
Probably, yeah. Sam Mills, Steve Tasker, Andre Johnson, DeMarcus Ware, Patrick Willis, Rondé Barber.
Those feel like all yeses to me.
Okay.
Let's start by saying that Kirk is a Saints fan from Canada. So let's start with there before he goes into it. I already know where he's going. I know you pretty well, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. I like Sam Mills a lot. I'm going to be making a far more impassioned case for Pat Swilling when we get there. Sam Mills was a great linebacker, but he was he was the third best guy on that defense, in my opinion. He has got a great story. If he doesn't have that story, are we talking about him in this much depth today? And it's not that I don't like Sam Mills for the Hall of Fame. I do. I'm kind of, again, jumping the gun a little bit. And if we all want to sort of like say at this point, we're gonna put him through, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be pushing hard for Pat Swilling a little bit later.
Right. Well, let's not forget about his USFL career too.
That is true.
Can't forget that.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
we'll get a USFL impassioned speech from Kirk later too. So.
Yeah, we are.
I will say one thing.
Yeah.
About one comment that you made. But I'll first preface. I have no Sam Mills preference. But when you say he's the third best linebacker,
Well, third best defensive player.
or defensive player, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Pittsburgh Steelers linebackers that all play on the same team that are all in the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, I just want to point out that just because he might be the third best or whatever, you know,
Right,
it's
but I
not
mean,
a knock against him is all.
Sure,
but I am.
But
not
when you say
passionate
that about
Sam
Pittsburgh, and when you were saying that about Denver, when we were doing the Rod Smith speech, they won.
That's true. They did win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's true. Like I said, I voted for Sam Mills, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
passionate about Sam Mills. I just picked I mean, I don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame of maybe down the road, maybe, but I still picked him for the first 25. I think he's better than a lot of the players on here. But I don't know. I just don't want people to say, oh, well, he was the third best player on the defense, so we should forget about him, because some of those players still deserve to be in the Hall of Fame if they're on a great defense.
Definitely.
All right. So
I do hear what you're saying. I actually had a similar thought to Kirk, where when I think of those Saints defenses, I think Ricky Jackson 1, Pat Swilling 2, then Sam Mills. And the fact that it's not a championship team, championships traditionally to the Hall of Fame and to me personally do matter. It's why I thought Rod Smith deserved more consideration. And it's why I'm confused about the first Patriots run not getting more consideration so far. Ty Law's the only one that's gotten it so far. And that took a while. So to me, winning does matter. And Sam Mills, to me, is comparable to Teddy Bruschi, who I didn't vote for in my top 25 in terms of the type of player he was. And Bruschi had the championships. Maybe Sam Mills was a little bit better of a player with personal accolades. I don't feel strongly about it, but I didn't vote for him, and I was surprised he actually made it as far as he did last year.
I would argue, though, he also already was a champion twice. USFL for the Stars.
Right.
okay. Fair.
I mean, even with that though, I don't have a problem with advancing in the 25. We got 10 out of 13 people going for him.
All right. So you know what? That Sam Mills might be a bigger discussion and a deeper dive when we're paring down from 25 to 15. So
Fair enough.
All right. So if we're putting those through right now, we have just allotted 12 spots. Evan, I made you the host on that. So if you want,
I'll share it as we go here.
Okay.
So let me share the spreadsheet that I have, so everybody can see where we stand at this point. If I need to get off my spreadsheet back onto the Zoom. There we go. So everybody see that?
I'm looking.
Yep, you can see it.
Okay. So yeah, so we've got the first 12 guys up here. None of whom are really that surprising, I suppose. These are ones we have left over here, and anyone gray we've already eliminated. I haven't updated it fully, but we're working on it as we go.
Right,
At least give you an idea as to where we are.
All right,
Do you want to why don't we finish the 9s and then we'll go back to 2? What do you
should we do the 9s? Okay. Yeah, because it's only the 2. Steve Smith and Leroy Butler. I think at this point we're now saying, do we keep any of them out?
Butler, you got to keep in, especially considering he was very close to making it last year. Smith is in a very tricky situation considering you already have Holt, and you already have Wayne, and plus you already have Andre Johnson. It's less so about Smith and more so about the receiver depth. But Steve Smith, everyone agrees he is a Hall of Famer, so I would personally keep him on. And same with Butler.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can agree that he's a Hall of Famer. I love Steve Smith, but I wouldn't keep him on. I just don't think I think he did an admirable job during his career, but he his teams never went anywhere. I mean, Carolina made it a little
Bowl.
ways. He made it to a
Made it
Super
to the
Bowl.
Super
They
Bowl,
didn't win, but he was not a major contributor on a championship team. And frankly, I think it was only 1 year that he had that I would say, yeah, he might have been the best receiver in the league. I think he was good, very, very good. But I wouldn't advance it through. I like him a lot, but
He's sort of the football version of a compiler in a lot of ways, and I didn't vote for him either.
I didn't vote for him either myself. I was big for Andre Johnson. That's the wide receiver I was really big for. Also Braves winning.
But I want to speak up for Steve Smith though. I mean, the man had 14,000 yards, almost 15,000 yards, 81 touchdowns. I know we're not looking too much at the Pro Bowls and all pros, but 4 Pro Bowls on top of that. He's one of the top yardage of any of these wide receivers that are on this list. And he played pretty well with 2 different teams and multiple quarterbacks.
Yeah, my thing with Steve Smith is, again, we're coming back. I don't think anyone's have a problem with Leroy Butler, who's clearly the top safety on this list. Would everyone agree with that? Anyone have any problem with Leroy Butler?
Yeah, no issue.
All right, so
sorry to cut you off. If I'm the only one that feels this way, I'll save it. But I don't think Leroy Butler is a Hall of Fame player. He had a handful of good seasons. You could even say great seasons. I don't think he had a great career. I'm surprised that there's so much consensus on him being on. He didn't make my list of 25, and my original list, when I pared it down, I think I got down to 49 off the bat, and he was on that list. So I don't feel strongly enough to hold it up if I'm the lone voice, but I don't think of him as being a Hall of Fame player. I don't think of him as being better than Rodney Harrison, by any means. Just my opinion.
Says the Patriots fan.
I'll throw a little bit of solidarity in there with you. I didn't vote for Butler either. I think my thoughts are basically very similar to what the other Dan's were. Good player, but not somebody I thought of as a top 25 guy.
Yeah, I didn't have Butler on my list either.
All right. So maybe Kirk at this point, because what I was going to say about Steve Smith is not an anti-Smith as much as it's a positional thing. How many wide receivers are going to have? And one guy who I'm worried is going to get lost in this, we haven't gotten to him yet, is Henry Ellard. Only because when Ellard retired, he was number 2 in everything, and then offenses exploded. And so we have someone who's 14,000 yards who, I mean, again, I'm just worried we already have 3 wide receivers. We're probably end up with 5 or 6 on this list. I don't know if I'm fully ready to put Steve Smith through. So do we want to just wait on these 2 guys? And it seems to be quite a bit of debate.
I think right now we'll just leave Smith and Butler as part of, I guess, the meat of the sandwich that we still have to figure out when we have sort of the big vote through. Should we bring back up the 2s, Evan?
Yep. Yeah, I'll bring this back up so everyone can see.
Okay. And I think at this point, just maybe for the interest of time, we should probably, because I know that we probably want to try to keep this at 2 hours at least. With this group of number 2s, do we just sort of decide, just have a discussion here, then maybe only put 5 through to advance through of the 1s and 2s?
I think I would personally do that.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about the 2s first. Are we going to vote all of them and then just put through 5?
Well, yeah, I think just because at this point we've already got, how many did we put through already? 12. So we've only got 13 spots left. So now we've got to try to cut through.
Well, should we have people make some arguments on 2s though? Because the ones have at least had arguments. We needed some.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just saying after.
I understand what you're doing. We're good.
Yeah. So after we do the 2s, then we just sort of pare down from that. So with the running backs that we've got, Eddie George, Fred Taylor, Corey Dillon, Tiki Barber, I think we're going to have some impassioned things on some of them. I leave the floor open for anyone who wants to make a strong case for any of these four gentlemen.
I would like to for Eddie George, if I could.
Definitely, please.
Go for it.
Eddie George was the will that turned the Titans offense. If it wasn't for him being the person he was. He played every game. I remember watching him play with turf toe, and you could tell it hurt him, but it didn't really matter. But I want you to listen to some of these carries, and this is what Derrick Henry is going through, and I wish he was still there right now. But he rushed for 403 rushes in 2000. That's an incredible amount of wear and tear on this man. Over 10,000 yards rushing, which is, you think, well, that's not a lot. That is one of the tops in the NFL history. But one thing about him, again, when I'm talking about Steve McNair, Eddie George is the same type. What did he mean for the team? Without Eddie George, was there a Titans during this time? And I would say no, because Jeff Fisher had a very running back centric offense. Lorenzo Neal was his blocker for a couple of those years. Eddie George was he was the spoon that stirred the tea. He was it for our team, and he is still very vocal for the Titans today. And I'm very happy that he's part of our Titans family. Well, he doesn't look right in the Cowboys star either. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I think I might finally decide to put my case out for Tiki Barber, even though I did not vote for him. Growing up as a young child on Long Island, Tiki Barber was in fact my favorite player. In fact, I even have a few autographs from the children's books that he did with Rondé, his brother. When I looked at Tiki Barber, the reason why he decided to end his career early was because he thought he'd get a big broadcasting career. But I think a big reason why also, despite finishing 4.7 yards per carry, and in his final season, he averaged 5.1 yards per carry, and he just finished just right under 11,000 yards. If he decided to play another few seasons, he would easily be up in the top 10 in terms of rushing yards easily. And not only that, with that average of rushing, you can't ignore it. You can't ignore it. Now, granted, I didn't have one here because I didn't see him as a top 25 guy. But I think a big reason why he's not seen higher, and instead you see Fred Taylor on these lists more, is mainly because the fallout that ensued with Tiki Barber. And plus, it's not even really a good look when this finals in the year after he leaves, the Giants go on and knock off the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So it's not really a good look for him. But I'm someone that likes to see past the BS, see past the beef, and just realize, hey, people go through this stuff. And that's why I suggest that he should still be considered, but I still didn't have him in my top 25. So I just wanted to get my piece on Barber out of the way, considering that I'm pretty sure Kirk's been interested in that. I've held that in for like 3 years at this point.
I think though with Tiki, if I could, and with the four guys here involved, with Fred Taylor, who I know has gotten the most support from the actual committee, unlike the other three that we just discussed, I never felt at any point in time that Fred Taylor was one of the best four running backs in the league. I did feel that way at one point about Tiki, about Eddie, and about Corey. Just throwing that for whatever this may or may not mean.
I
And all the whole figure.
personally. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I think with a lot of these running backs, there's a lot of very good players, great players in this group. I was just trying to figure out a way to separate anyone from the group, and I ended up voting for two running backs. One of them was Tiki Barber. To me, one stat that stood out for me, there are only three players in NFL history with 10,000 rushing yards and 5,000 receiving yards. It's Marshall Faulk, Marcus Allen, and Tiki Barber. So when you are able to produce those kind of numbers and be in that kind of company, to me, that's Hall of Fame worthy, or at least Hall of Fame consideration worthy. Whereas a guy like you say, like Fred Taylor, by the end of his career, he had a nice total that placed him top 20, top 25 all time for rushing yards, over 10,000 yards. But that doesn't feel like a Hall of Famer to me. That yardage total alone doesn't feel like a magic number the way that 500 home runs does in baseball, so his yardage alone to me doesn't sell me on Fred Taylor, but Tiki Barber's combined numbers as a rusher and receiver, to me, does put him a notch above. He was the number 2 running back on my list.
Okay.
And the other thing about Barber is that he's the all-time leading rusher in Giants history by about 4,000 yards, and that's a team that's been around since the very beginning of the NFL, or almost. And so,
1925.
yeah, so that was worth it to me too.
Okay. Anyone want to make a case for Corey Dillon for or against? I wish we had a Bengals person.
I
here.
just-
I'm not really that
one-
passionate for Corey Dillon personally.
I just want to say one piece, if you don't mind,
No, no, please.
about the total rush. I mean, you got people like Fred Taylor or Corey Dillon that have. I mean, I would put Corey Dillon ahead of Fred Taylor just because they were lucky enough to not get the wear and tear on the body like most running backs, and they churned out enough seasons to get yards. Like Frank Gore was not. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame. He grinded out years and years of yardage, but never was like amazing. You know, I never look at these people and these running backs and say, "Oh my God, they were amazing." I could say Eddie George one year. I think he was pretty darn good. Fred Taylor, he was never, like you said, he was never the best running back in the league. He just was lucky enough to not get injured, and something is to be said for that. But I think too much emphasis is put on longevity and the ability to accumulate stats. What I would like to look at more is how impactful were they in the time that they were here. Now, if they were here 2 years, obviously fine. I mean, Bo Jackson was awesome to watch. He's not a Hall of Famer, but
Video game Bo Jackson is though.
What's that?
Video game Tecmo Bo Jackson.
Video Jackson. Tecmo Bo Jackson.
Tecmo.
I just don't like to give a lot of credit for longevity, and I just feel like Corey Dillon more impactful than Fred Taylor, but I mean I would put him over Fred Taylor. I'd get rid of Dillon, Taylor, even Eddie George. I mean, although I do like Eddie George, and I think he's a workhorse, I just don't see that impact. The impact in 3 years where they were just uncanny. That's my piece. But I don't like I said, I don't have a lot of passion around a bunch of these guys. So.
I will say as a Patriots fan that when we traded for Corey Dillon, it was weird because that's what I did in Madden every single year because we had no good running backs. And then all of a sudden we did it in real life. It was very, very strange. A very important part of winning 2 Super Bowls. But again, Terry Allen was important to winning that first Super Bowl. Antoine Smith was important. Like, I don't feel like the fact he was a running back on those Patriots teams isn't really that exciting for him. Honestly, he was on those terrible Bengals teams.
My friend Jim Foster, who, in case you guys don't know, is known as Bengals Jim. He's a very big Corey Dillon fan. Though for me personally, even he would tell you that it's difficult for him to put Corey Dillon ahead of, another Bengal that we're gonna speak on in a bit. But he does like the idea of Corey Dillon, considering that, especially during those eras of the Bengals where they were just the worst team in football, the one bright spot for that team was Corey Dillon rushing the football. That's really my piece. I'm not really that passionate on him personally.
Okay. All right. So should we move on to, we've got 3 linemen, 3 so good. Nick Mangold, Lomas Brown, Reuben Brown.
I think all 3 of them are Hall of Fame worthy personally.
Before we go anywhere, could we just give Nick Mangold credit for somehow being the spokesman for Seltzer like 9 years after he retired? A center, being the Bud Light Seltzer spokesman. Like,
they want to get him in the Hall of Fame, so they're getting his face out there.
Maybe.
It's like all of a sudden he's a nominee for the Hall of Fame. Let's get him on.
Although I will say he is the second best athlete in his family. So
that's true.
Second best. I got a strong vote for Nick Mangold. I always like the big uglies because that's where the game is really won and lost. And I've watched him over the years, man. His contribution, being available is my one thing. He played hurt, never complained, just a lunchbox toting son of a bitch. Excuse my French.
Yeah, no, great center.
Loved watching Nick Mangold for the Jets growing up. He was always that one factor that no matter how you thought the Jets were going to be, and oftentimes they weren't that good, especially except for those 2 times they went to the AFC title games. The one thing you would always lean on is that Nick Mangold was going to have a hell of a performance at center. And I know that sounds very weird to say that I was looking at how a center was, but I mean, come
No,
on.
it's not at all.
No, I always liked Nick Mangold as a player, though for me personally, it was between him or Jeff Saturday, but I'm honestly down with either of them. I think Nick Mangold is definitely worthy of the Hall of Fame.
Okay, so we've got two defensive linemen, John Abraham, Leroy Glover. Again, two very, very good players. Anyone want to make a passionate plea for or against on either?
I think both of them do deserve it, but at the same time, like the final 25, I just couldn't.
This is where I wish Jack was here, because Charles Tillman is somebody.
I'll do the Jack on this one.
Yeah, please.
So, in sports, if you get something named after you that gets used repeatedly, you must have had some sort of impact on the game. And I don't have these stats in front of me, but the peanut punch for Charles Tillman is still used to this day. They still call it the peanut punch. I believe he forced the most fumbles in NFL history.
I think he was actually.
Yeah, he forced more fumbles than anyone else in NFL history. He's down on interceptions because forced fumbles isn't something that really gets measured for cornerbacks. But the fact that we talked about Lance Briggs, if there's going to be a second person on that defense from those Bears teams after Urlacher, it's the second most impactful player on that team, just for the sheer number of turnovers he forced and the havoc he created. It's got to be Peanut Tillman.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to necessarily vote for him in the Hall, but if there's a guy, there's only really one person that ever shut down Megatron, and it was Peanut Tillman. And probably half of those fumbles came from my Lions too, so that doesn't really necessarily count on the Richter scale there.
I think
that's half the fumbles in the league. I think
of a defensive back. I don't think he's forced the most fumbles of any.
Is that what it is?
History.
Okay,
yeah, I think it's
correct.
defensive back because I think like Robert Mathis and some of the defensive ends, pass rushers forced a lot more. But
that would make more sense
still
to the strip sacks. But yeah, I mean, he legit was the only dude that could even touch a candle to Megatron one-on-one for whatever reason.
Yeah. Also helps when you're in the same division.
Yeah.
Jack changed my mind about. I wish he was here last year. He changed my mind about Tillman. He was an afterthought to me before. I don't know if he's Hall of Famer, but he's in the conversation.
Same here. He definitely changed my mind. Changed my mind about Lorenzo Neal too. And yeah, I had Neal on my list as well, personally.
Okay, so we've got two special teamers, Mel Gray and Sean Landetta. All right, Vinny, this is your baby. You're the special teams guy.
Yeah, well, don't forget, Jack also is very big with special teams too. But okay, Sean Landetta, this is the one that I really want to put a stake for. Now, as you know, who exactly is Sean Landetta? Well, I would argue that until we get to Shane Leckler next year, which I'm going to be hounding that for, Sean Landetta was someone who was always seen as, for a while, the best punter in the game. Yeah, there was Reggie Roby. However, Sean Landetta is only one of, I think, only like a few guys off the top of my head that's a part of two all-decade teams, but whether it's by the Hall of Fame itself or just combined, that's not in the Hall of Fame currently. He's also someone that has been a two-time USFL champion. He was on the same teams as Sam Mills playing for the Stars. So that also helps too. He's also part of the Rams 20th anniversary team during their time in St. Louis, the Eagles 75th anniversary team, the USFL all-time team. This is a guy that played for many different teams throughout his entire career, but still managed to be a part of the all-time teams for three of them, as well as the USFL's all-time team. That's what I personally think. I think in terms of if you're going to put any punter in the semifinalist list, it has to be Sean Landetta. 22 seasons, no question. I think he absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
So according to Pro Football Reference, they created a few years ago basically a way that you can decide exactly like the Hall of Fame. I can't remember what is it. The Hall of Fame monitor.
It's the Hall of Fame monitor. Hall of Fame monitor.
So Leckler is number 1, Ray Guy is number 2, Landetta's number 3 as punters in
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Landetta is someone that has also broke a few records when he was a punter. I think he was also the first punter to average like 50 yards per punt in 3 different decades, I think it was. Like I think he also had like, I think, tell me wrong, but was he also the one that had the negative 7-yard punter? Either way, he averaged 43 yards points per average. And when he retired, his punts, punting yards, and punts landing inside the 20-yard line were around either the first or second at the time of his retirement. And he's also the oldest punter to ever appear in a league game. So, in my personal opinion, I think Landetta absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And we need more special teamers. There needs to be, I'd be down for a committee for putting in special teamers. That's how much I love special teamers.
You also love committees.
No. Don't forget contributors, Evan. You cannot forget
I know.
Yeah.
So
okay, so I think at this point again, because unfortunately Arnie had to leave because we are going a little bit longer, so we probably wanted to. Well, that's what we do. So maybe at this point, with the 1s and the 2s, Evan, do you want to bring that back up?
Yeah, I'll pull it back up here. Hold on a second.
And then maybe we can just all agree to vote for just 4 of them. So everyone puts in for 4, and then the top 4 advance. So everyone's voting for 4 people.
So I'm just going to pull everyone down here out of this whole thing so everybody can see who we're voting for.
Okay. And we can only vote for 4 of those, and those 4 will continue on, and the rest will be sadly eliminated.
And I'm gonna sort it so it goes by position here, guys, to make it a little bit easier.
Off to the shadow realm you go, Jimbo. That's a reference to a meme, by the way.
I have no idea what you kids are talking about. I'm older than dirt.
Hey, you look better than dirt, I would argue.
Barely, but yes.
All right, so there we go. So we got Mangold. Well, we went alphabetically by position, which isn't all that useful. But Mangold, Tillman, Abraham, Tuck, Glover, Neal, McGinnis, Reuben Brown, Lomas Brown, Landetta, Cunningham, McNair, Dylan, George, Taylor, Barber, Mel Gray, and Rod Smith.
Okay. I guess I'll go first. So my 4 votes will be for Tillman, Rod Smith. I'm convert on that. Randall Cunningham. And my 4th is going to go to Mangold.
Okay.
Evan?
All right. I am going to vote for I'll go Willie McGinnis. Peanut Tillman, Lorenzo Neal. And I know we didn't talk about him, but I'm a big Lomas Brown guy.
Okay. I'm just going in the order that's sort of appearing on my screen. Tom.
All right. Well, you obviously know that I'm going to go with Rod Smith because I really like him. Plus, we just put Reggie Wayne through, so I would argue Rod Smith's best season is better than his season. But anyway, I'm going to go with Reuben Brown, Lomas Brown. And I really have a hard time picking anybody else on this list. I'll go with Tillman.
Okay. Wayne.
I've got Mango, McGinnis, McNair, and Lorenzo Neal.
Okay. Vinny.
Going Lorenzo Neal, Sean Landetta, Randall Cunningham, and Peanut Tillman.
Okay. Darren.
I'm going to go with Peanut Tillman, Willie McGinnis, Lorenzo Neal, and Randall Cunningham.
Okay. Greg.
I got to go Peanut Tillman, Sean Landetta, Randall Cunningham, And a little love for Corey Dillon.
Okay. Dan Newman.
I'll go Mangold, Landetta, Eddie George, and Tiki.
All right. Dan Kelly.
Willie McGinnis, Reuben Brown, Tiki Barber, and I think Joe converted me to Rod Smith.
Okay. Jeremy.
My name's Tom, by the way, not Joe.
Oh, Tom, sorry, buddy.
That's all right.
I'll go Rod Smith, Eddie George, Steve McNair, and Lorenzo Neal.
And Chris.
I go with Sean Landetta, Reuben Brown, Rod Smith, and Peanut Tillman.
Okay. All right. So who does that put through then? So we got
All right,
Tillman.
hold on a second.
Oh.
Let's resort this, make it easy.
Oh, Excel can do that. I've been doing it wrong all this time.
I live on spreadsheets, my friend. All right, so we could safely eliminate Mel Gray, Fred Taylor, Leroy Glover, Justin Tuck, and John May Abraham, right? So our top, we said 5, right? We have 6 with a tie. Do we just want to go with all 6?
Yeah, I think at this point we can just keep them all for now.
All right, so Mangold, Reuben Brown, Lomas Brown, Steve McNair, Eddie George, Tiki Barber, and Corey Dillon all have to go for the time.
I guess so. Yeah. All right.
Oh, sorry. Bring that over there. Okay. So continue.
All right. So I guess we should go right to the 3s. Who do we have? So we've got now a few people. So yeah, we've got. I guess we should look at Mike Allstott. I'm sure there's somebody who's going to have a lot to say about someone who could be the last fullback to enter the Hall of Fame. Actually, Vinny, I think you said that to me once.
I saw him play in high school. Does that count?
In terms of
Ooh, nice.
Wow.
modern era, perhaps, but if you look at the senior, you still have Alan Amici right there, just waiting to run up
but
through the.
Again, for the interest of time, let's just look at the guys.
True. To be fair, I'm only talking modern here.
Yeah. All right. So anyone have an Allstott pitch?
Well, I can speak for his Joliet Catholic days, but as far as his Tampa Bay days, not really. So,
I like him a lot, but I mean, not enough to necessarily have him in my top 25. That's where it gets so hard.
Yeah, like same here. I'm very big on him too, but it's sort of like Allstott or Neal, and I went with Neal based on his blocking abilities more so. So
Okay.
yeah.
Logan Mankins, I think Evan, that's another one of your guys, isn't it?
Yeah, Logan Mankins is he's the unluckiest person ever played for the Patriots. He was traded. He was drafted the year after they won their 3rd Super Bowl and traded right before they won the 4th Super Bowl. But Mankins, when he was drafted, Mel Kiper nearly had a conniption that the Patriots would waste a pick on someone like Mankins, and then he just went on to be a dominant force for those Patriots teams. That 07 team, the Giants beat, the 11 team, the Giants beat. But he was a dominant force on those offensive lines. And as much as we talk about, or Vinny brought up Dante Scarnecchia as an offensive line coach getting the Hall of Fame, his greatest pupil, the best person to ever play at offensive line during those Patriots years. Bruce Armstrong and John Hanna are outside of that. But during those Patriots years, by far was Logan Mankins.
Okay.
You mentioned Bruce Armstrong. I'm surprised he was not even a preliminary pick.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he
That
retired right
surprised me
before the
also.
Patriots started winning too. So unfortunately for him.
All right, so we've got 2 defensive ends. Again, great names. Robert Mathis, Vince Wilfork. I love these guys.
Yeah, it's tough.
Please just can these people just finally just start increasing these classes for God's sake?
Well, no, exactly, and I'm sure we've got some passionate people about that. Again, I think because we've just lost another one. Maybe for the interest of time, we should just speed this a little bit. Cornelius Bennett is another good one. If Greg was here, Greg's in Antarctica. Greg Pulowski, who was in our thing from last year. So he's a little bit busy.
That's going a long way to avoid us.
Exactly. Just as someone who watched the Bills a lot, I'll just be, again, very brief here. Bennett scared me if it was a team going up against the Bills, just as much as Bruce Smith did. So Bennett has just not received nearly enough love. I don't know why that is. I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah. And our final one is a place kicker, Gary Anderson, just did a whole lot. I don't know, but he doesn't have that signature moment.
He does, but for not positively.
Yeah, well, not a good one.
Yeah,
true.
I voted for Anderson. I feel pretty strongly about him. He does get remembered for that Minnesota game in '98 when they lost to the Falcons. I think that was the only field goal he missed all year, if I'm remembering correctly.
It was. He was perfect the whole season.
Okay.
He was perfect up until they said he had been perfect up to that point.
And I guess he didn't make that many Pro Bowls, but Pro Bowls for kickers is sort of a strange animal. But he's got to be way up there in all-time points for kickers. So
he's number two. Number three, I'd say that.
No, he's number three. Vinatieri passed him. So yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I got to put in just a little bit of a plug for him. Sure. If kickers matter, then Gary Anderson should be in the Hall of Fame.
So if we've got the group left from the 2s and 1s, we have this group of 3s again, because we've got to get down to 25. Do we just sort of like do the same thing that we just did and pick 4?
I think that's fair.
Sure.
The only, and obviously I have a bias here, but the only people I feel particularly strongly about in this group, aside from Robert Mathis, who I do think was dominant at times on championship teams, are Logan Mankins and Will Fork. Will Fork is the only player aside from Brady that bridged the Patriots 2 sets of 3 championships. He was around for the last one of the first 3 and the first one of the last 3. So he got 2 rings and was part of both of those mini dynasties. And he was a problem for everyone that he faced. He obviously not in the Aaron Donald mold, but Vince Wilfork might be the last just room-eating defensive tackle to do more than just take up space, to actually make plays while just being a huge body in the middle. And I mean, I watched every single Patriots game. They're just not nearly the team they were without him. And for Mankins, my thing about him, which I think is the problem I have with like a Sean Landeta or Gary Anderson, even, not that I don't value special teams, but Logan Mankins was, in my opinion, the best guard in the NFL for the time that he played. And that to me is Hall of Fame worthy. And like Sean Landeta, obviously he was a punter, which is a different position, but Sean Landeta wasn't the best punter in the NFL during his career. He just happened to play the longest. So he has a lot of longevity records, but there's no wear and tear on a punter. So longevity on a punter or a kicker, to me, doesn't really go the distance the same way Jackie Slater playing for 20 years at offensive tackle means something to me. So it's just my personal opinion, but for me, those 2 things make those guys more worthy, or those 3 guys, because include Mathis also, than some of the other guys we're talking about.
So at this point, should we just bring up the group that we have here?
Give me 1 second. I'm just putting it into view. Everybody can see. Give me 1 more second here.
And then maybe we go back to the top again, look at the 7s.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And those ones will just be automatically at that point, seeing if we want to like put some of those in, or whether we're going to do like a group vote on all of that. Because it looks like that's what we're sort of like building towards, is this big group of maybes in the middle that we're going to have to like put through and make.
I sent you a message on that too, Kirk, was that I had an easy time picking
Yeah, you
the
did.
top
Yeah.
50, and I had an easy time picking the top 10. But picking 11 through 25 is really, there's just so many comparable guys in that group.
Mhm.
All right. So I have it up here now. Let me just sort it by position again. Sort. Okay. And then we're going to pull it up for everybody. Sorry. There we go. There we go. All right. It's right there.
Okay. Evan, do you want to start with that? Because it's actually showing you up at the top of my list here, so I might as well just do it that way.
Okay. Well, hold on. Yeah, go to someone else. I'll come back to a second. I've just been putting it together. I haven't thought about it yet. So.
Okay. All right. So actually, I'll go. All right. So from this group, for me, it's Bennett, Rod Smith, Vince, and Tillman.
Rod Smith, Vince, and Tillman. Okay.
Tom?
Tillman, Rod Smith. Yeah, I like Robert Mathis. And I don't know. Man, this is tougher.
Yeah, it's super hard.
Yeah. I'll go with McGinnis, even though I'm not a big Patriots fan, but I'll go with McGinnis.
Wayne.
McGinnis, Wilfork, Mathis, and Tillman.
Okay. Vinny?
I'm gonna go with Tillman. I'm gonna go with Neal, Cunningham, and what's the last one? I'll probably just throw one last Hail Mary to Sean Lindetta. Why not?
Okay. Greg.
I'm gonna go with Allstott, Landetta, Cunningham, and McGinnis.
Okay. Dan N.
I'll do Landetta, Anderson, Bennett, and McGinnis.
Okay. Dan K.
Wilfork, McGinnis, Mankins, Mathis.
Okay. Jeremy.
Tillman,
I didn't hear that one.
Tillman,
Tillman. Okay.
Mathis, McGinnis, and Bennett.
All right. And Chris.
Go with Mankins, Tillman, Rod Smith, and Sean Landetta.
Okay. And then Evan, I guess you close off.
Yeah. So Lorenzo Neal. I'll go with McGinnis. What else? I mean, I still think Cornelius Bennett was so freaking good. Oh, sorry. And I'd say Big Vince.
All right. So who does that put us through?
We have
Would you look at that? Another tie.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right.
Do you want to do our top two from this list of four?
Yeah.
Or you want to just fill them?
Let's do that because.
All right. So hold on a second. Let me get rid of these guys.
Sorry, how many do we have already through?
12.
Well, these guys aren't through all the way. So
No, that's what I was asking. How many guys are through all the way?
Oh yeah, 12.
12.
I'm impressed by the rise of Willie McGinnis.
And Peanut Tillman as well.
Yeah.
All right.
See
So
if,
Big
see if
contributors
they'll
to
let
the
me
team.
speak on his behalf in Canton.
well, all I know is if Tom Nalen doesn't just like start throwing bouquets in Tom's direction, get him to do stuff. All right. So this vote is going to be these four
I'm
guys.
bummed that he's not in the list this year.
I know.
He was easily the biggest. He was
Yeah.
easily the biggest snub. I thought of you when that happened, Tom. I felt very sorry.
All right. So everyone's just picking two out of these guys just to advance them.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right. So go ahead.
Vincent Cornelius.
Okay. I will do Vince and Cornelius.
Tom.
Mathis, Cornelius.
Wayne.
Wilfork and Mathis.
Vinny.
I'm gonna go with Bennett and Landetta.
Okay. Greg.
Mathis and Landetta.
Okay. Dan N.
Bennett and Landetta.
Dan K.
I am shocked by the Sean Landetta love. Will Fork and McGinnis.
He's not there. It's Wilfork and it's Mathis, Bennett, or Landetta.
Got to choose two.
Yeah.
Oh, only two of those guys to move on.
Yeah.
Got you. I apologize. Mathis and Will Fork.
Okay.
Jeremy.
Wilfork.
And who else?
Oh, Bennett. Cornelius Bennett.
Chris.
Bennett and Landetta.
Okay. So.
Let's say it's Wilfork and Bennett.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So move that down there. Just keeping all the votes here so we know where they are later. All right. So we now move on to the sevens.
Yeah. So we agreed that we're just holding off on Smith and Butler, who had 9. So we've got 6 7s here. And again, should we just like say, are we looking to, or do we want to take maybe the 9s and the 7s and put some of these through at this point? Or do we want to just hold them back?
We could vote top 4 out of the 9s and 7s and just advance 4 of them for now.
I like that. Any objection?
I like that.
No, I like Dan Kelly. I like Dan K's idea.
All right, so
Speed up
let's
the
do
process.
that.
Why not?
Does anyone have any arguments you want to do quickly for any of the 7s? Because we haven't talked about them at all.
John Alexander. Oh, actually, I take that back. Actually, forget him. I definitely want to be with him. But listen, Raiders fans, I love you to death. But why the hell do you hate Steve Wisniewski? I
You've got
want
the
to know
ultimate
this
fan
answer.
here. He'll tell you he doesn't.
Not at all. He's definitely worthy of the honors. You talk about another big ugly bruiser. You know, there's been a many running back I've seen go to glory behind his blocking and just that tenacity. We've got another guy like that now that can't stay healthy because of father time and the wear and tear with Incognito. Kind of wish he was on the list, but you know. But yeah, Wisniewski gets my vote every day because when you got a guy that's going to blow holes open and just nullify defensive tackles, that's him.
I think the reason why Raiders fans don't really talk about him that much is because I think because the Raiders fans, they're much bigger into seniors, especially during their era, and even a couple for AFL. But with Wisniewski, considering he came at a time where it was the end of their heyday, but also just the year before they went to the Super Bowl, I think as a result, he gets kind of lost in the shuffle, even though he was an 8-time All-Pro, which those don't grow on trees. It's 8 times he was an All-Pro. I'm mentioning AP here, but throwing the argument of AP back to them for a guy that has these credentials that are saying that matter, how come a guy like Wisniewski that has these same accolades, how come he's not elevated there? I mean, the guy, despite this, only has one time he's been a semifinals. One time. That is just unacceptable. That should not be the case at all. This guy should honestly be a finalist.
He's just
already.
overlooked, Vince. He's just been overlooked, lost in the shadow of some of the other guys who got the glory. But I'm watching the guys that's in the mud doing it, and he was one of the main guys.
He's one of the biggest mud guys there were.
Well, we had quite a few. But
in his entire career, he only missed 2 games.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when we talk about longevity. One of those guys,
especially for that position. Especially
that's
for that
what,
position.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Tough as nails.
Tough.
A real Raider right there.
Tough guy. Yeah. He wasn't trying to be the most popular guy either. That's why most of the fans don't talk about it.
That's true. I mean, hell, I see more discussion about John Matuzak, even though he's more known for sign playing sloth in the Goonies. I mean, come on, guys, I love you, but come on, come on here.
I just want to, before we vote, I just want to say one thing. I have no passion about Minnesota Vikings, but Kevin Williams in the early 2000s was the best defensive tackle in the game for several years. The fact that he does not get enough Hall of Fame love is beyond me.
He has never been a semifinalist. Never been a semifinalist.
To be fair, was he just a finalist last year? Actually, didn't he just make his first list last year?
He wasn't.
No,
I don't know why people overlook him. He was a dominant defensive end. Probably the best defensive end for 4 years, maybe 5 in that early 2000s.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know why he's not getting any love, but man, and I'm not a Vikings guy, not at all. And those the poor Minnesota fans probably have struggled worse than any fan in any of the 4 sports you can imagine.
If Glenn was here, I'm sure Buffalonian would disagree with you on that one.
AFL championships.
The Vikings haven't had they had a couple Twins championships. The North Stars left, and they haven't had a championship in I don't even know how long. I feel bad for them. But
they had an NFL
Williams
championship.
should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Here, let me say this. I'm a Patriots guy. This is my dude. This is my pound the table for anyone guy is Kevin Williams. Let me just read you a list according to that same Pro Football Reference of the top defensive linemen of all time. You ready? Defensive tackles: Alan Page, Bob Lilly, Randy White, Joe Green, John Randall, Warren Sapp, Aaron Donald, who's still playing, Merlin Olsen, Kevin Williams. Then Cortez Kennedy, Henry Jordan, and going down from there. Like everybody ahead of him is a Hall of Famer. The 2 people behind him are a Hall of Famer. A score of 100 on this means that you should be a Hall of Famer by everything. He's got 105. He's the 5th best player according to that thing on this list, right behind Torrey Holt, who's at 105 as well. Like he's the 9th best defensive tackle of all time.
Let's not forget.
Don't get it.
I mean, I like I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of all pros, but he played in a market that wasn't watched a lot, and he had 5 in a row.
Yeah.
And people recognize his greatness back then, and why they don't recognize it now is beyond me.
I think the reason why, Tom, is I do agree with all those points. I think the reason why you don't really hear about him as much is because, well, this also was 2nd year of eligibility, but also because you had Jared Allen on the end right there. And this has always been the case in the NFL where unless you're getting a lot of sacks, you're generally not going to get that much attention from.
If Jared Allen had a buzz
media,
cut,
also
I was just going to say
fans,
that.
If Jared Allen had a buzz cut, we would not even be talking about it. I hate saying it. He is one of the most overrated players in NFL history to me.
Well, we're going to have a deep one on that one soon. Just before we move on, Sean Alexander, he's one of the few members of the 100 touchdown club, former MVP, never been a semifinalist, another criminal thing.
All this talk about Fred Taylor putting in, Sean Alexander needs to be the one there instead. Sean Alexander was, during that 5-year stretch, the best running back in the game, period. At least in my opinion. You could say with Edgerrin James, and you could also say about LaDainian Thompson, but during that time, during that stretch of Sean Alexander's peak, no one else was better than him. I mean, in 6 years, he compiled 89, I think like 90, 89, 91 touchdowns. I mean, come on, where do you see that? Just period. Where do you see that? That is numbers that you would see out of a
PlayStation.
quarterback.
Yeah.
It's look, he
And
needs
on
to
top,
be.
not even just a running back. For 1 year, he was the best player in the league.
No,
he was the MVP.
He was the
like
best
26
player
touchdowns.
in the entire NFL for 1 year, not just the best running back.
Yeah, there have been
I mean,
four players
I-
have won the. Sorry, 4 non-quarterbacks have won the MVP since 2000. The other, they are Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson, Adrian Peterson, and Sean Alexander. That's it.
Don Alexander. Man,
So let's
he was-
vote 4 through. And again, this is not taking anyone out at this point. This is just putting 4 in.
So the vote is right here. So we got Steve Smith, Leroy Butler, Sean Alexander, Jeff Saturday for some center love, Richmond Webb, friend of the show,
Mhm.
Steve Wisniewski, Kevin Williams, and if you're going to have a kick returner in the modern era, probably Devin Hester's your guy. So
I don't think he's a defensive end, though.
oh, is he? Why is he listed as PA? That is wrong. Sorry about that.
That could have been
No
my
idea how
fault.
he ended up with defensive end. I was typing this at my kid's karate, so excuse me for that. There we go.
Hey, he did a pretty good job, all things considered, to be fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's great. I was joking. I knew who he is.
Hey, no, man, we all make mistakes. So I can't be perfect. I mean, I am, but I have to make a mistake here and there so you guys feel better.
Like I said earlier, even the AP voters make mistakes. So
That's true.
Make mistakes all the time, Tom.
All right. So we're voting through, correct?
Yeah, we're voting through. We're not. None of these people are eliminated.
Got it. All right. So how we got? Hold on. We got 8 here. Are we voting for 4? Or should we vote for 3?
We were almost getting to 2 hours. Let's just vote for 4.
Vote for 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'll start. Butler, Alexander, Webb, Wisniewski.
Butler, Alexander, Webb, Wisniewski. Got it. Is it me?
Yeah.
All right. Kevin Williams. No. Kevin Williams, Leroy Butler. I'm going to vote for Saturday. We need some centers out of here going in. And do I want Alexander or Richmond? I'll go with the big ugly on that one.
Tom.
Butler, Alexander, Kevin Williams, and even though I think others should be ahead of him just because they were the first to go, I'm going to give Devin Hester a vote.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Chris.
All right, I'm going with Leroy Butler, Sean Alexander, Steve Wisniewski, and Kevin Williams.
Vinny.
Leroy Butler, Sean Alexander, Steve Wisniewski, and I love my special teamers and all, but listen, this is at the same time, this is also his first year. He can have another day. Give me Kevin Williams all the way, definitely.
Okay. Greg.
Steve Smith, Jeff Saturday, Sean Alexander, and Devin Hester.
Okay. Wayne.
I've got Kevin Williams, of course, the Wiz, Steve Smith, and Hester.
Dan K.
I'm going all big boys. I'm going Jeff Saturday, Richmond Webb, Steve Wisniewski, and Kevin Williams.
And Jeremy.
Hester, Sean Alexander, Kevin Williams, and Leroy Butler.
Okay.
It looks like we have 3. We have 3 with at least 6, 1 with 5. So how many?
I noticed you have Kevin Williams as a defensive end there.
Yeah, defensive tackle. I'd say again, same issue. Sorry. I'll fix that right now. Oops. Oh, whatever. Kevin Williams is defensive tackle. Sorry about that. Again. All right. So Out of this, we have Williams, Butler, and Alexander have at least 6. Do we
We're putting
want
4
to?
of these through, right? So Wisniewski's
Yep.
through.
There's Wisniewski's the other one. Okay,
Wisniewski's through.
Yeah.
no problem.
All right.
All right, good.
He's listed as a guard too, by the way.
All right. So that means we've got 16 confirmed semifinalists.
Let me go back up here and get them in. All right, so Williams, Wisniewski, Leroy Butler, and who was the other one? Sean Alexander. Sean Alexander.
Okay. All right, so I guess maybe we've got 5 4s. Do we do the same thing with the 4s and the remaining people on the bottom and just clear some stuff off and just put 4, allow 4 to survive?
Sure, you want to do your
I like it.
USFL on Herschel?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we'll do that. Again, pretty much. Because I know everyone's got to do other stuff tomorrow. I'm sure, unless you live in the tropics and you don't. Herschel Walker and again, a lot of this is choices. Herschel Walker chose to go with the USFL. I'm going to take politics out of this. I don't know. And frankly, I could care less about what his politics are. I think we all should at this point. He made a choice to go to the USFL, and it's probably and very well might have cost him the Hall of Fame. And I said this last year. My belief is that had the NFL sort of absorbed the USFL like it did with the AAFC, like it did with the AFL, all those stats would be counted. When you look at Pro Football Reference, you're not even seeing what he did in the USFL. They're not part of the grander scheme. If Walker would have played, he would be in that 10,000 yard category. He was a difference maker. He was the best running back in football at one point in time. He just didn't play in the NFL, but he was a pro.
If I recall, wasn't it like during that whole time, if you were to count all of it up, wouldn't he actually have the most amount of total yards of all time? Or at least
No,
top
but
5?
I think the argument I made last time was that the USFL, and I think we can also agree, was not a par league with the NFL. So I gave him 60% of what he would have done. And it still would have put him at that mark. So if you would have done like yard for yard, which, I mean, it's not going to happen, but still, Walker made a choice that a lot of other players made. He went for the money, and it was a better financial thing for him to do. So Walker, somebody that I'm very, very big on. And that's pretty much why I don't think that him going to the USFL should really be hurting him, because
It shouldn't.
Yeah, but it does. So that's my thing on Herschel for brevity.
I would like to say I agree with you on his USFL days, but I have a hard time seeing his incredible impact in the NFL. He had one good season. The rest of them were okay.
That's and you're not wrong.
Like,
you're not wrong.
You traded him away, and you get Emmitt Smith, and he runs all over. Obviously, much better team. I just don't see his impact. I mean, I would, even if you count his USFL days and you add that in, he didn't have a year where I would be like, whoa, that guy was awesome.
Well, he did in that league.
Yeah, in USFL.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But that's not the same competition. And
His
when I
biggest-
talk about AFL versus the NFL, those competition, yeah, it was a slightly different competition in the AFL, but at the time, the NFL in the 80s was far superior to the USFL.
Oh, and I agree with you. That's sort of like why
I'm
give
just
it 60%.
I'm not trying to be a naysayer.
No.
I don't have Herschel Walker on my list because I just don't see the impact he had in the NFL. Definitely, he had an impact in the USFL. I think he if you count his USFL, he had the most yards in any season of any running back in professional football. I think he had
Yeah.
like
And when you
2,200 yards or something like that.
But it is
And right. And when you talk about his impact is more often felt in the form of trades, and also too for being a junior coming out of college, because before then you didn't see that. But I mean, on the field, honestly, in all the years I've watched football, I can't remember a single Herschel Walker moment. So
The only Herschel Walker moment that comes to mind for me is him getting chased down from behind by Adam Vinatieri on a kickoff return, and tackled. So that is my number one Herschel Walker moment. But
It was also his rookie season too, by the way.
yeah, so I did just want to say, just a personal preference as someone that actually went to a Boston Breakers game when I was little. I know there was some quality players in the USFL, obviously Steve Young, Jim Kelly, Reggie White, etc. The overall level of play for Boston was garbage. They were an awful team, and the Patriots were not great. And Boston, I think, only had that team for 1 year. But like the big deal was Doug Flutie might come to town with the Generals, and so for me, it's hard to credit anyone for, and I'm not saying I hold it against him, but I can't really credit anyone for USFL stats the same way I wouldn't for Canadian Football League or XFL or anything else that pops up.
So Tommy Maddox doesn't have a chance at all.
Not for me. Not for me. I'll let somebody else make that argument.
Oh man.
Anyone want
He
to
gets
pound the
credit
table for
ending
Tommy
Dan
Maddox?
Reeves' career.
I'll pound the table for he hate me.
Rod Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, Herschel Walker would be a no for that reason. I just have trouble. And I also think if his name was Joe Smith and he wasn't a Heisman Trophy winner and no one knew who he was when he entered the NFL, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. Like Herschel Walker, his whole career and even now has a certain cachet to him. He was a star, but I don't think he was a star because of how he did in the NFL, personally.
Fair enough. Anyone want to stump for Simeon Rice?
Yeah, we got 4 really good defensive ends here.
I'll just say this. I don't understand. I mean, I voted for Neil Smith, but I'm not passionate about him. I picked my top 25 guys. When I'm looking at this list of 4, I don't understand why these 5 people are even on here ahead of some of the 2s and 3s that we got. Mm-hmm. I have no passion around any of these people. I loved, Leslie O'Neal was awesome. I thought he was a killer, against the Broncos every time I watched, but none of these guys on here I carry any passion for. I think they're solid players. Even Neil Smith, who I voted for to get on this list, because I still don't. For me, I'm agnostic, I guess you'd say, about any of these on the number 4s. I would bring some of the 2s and 3s up way faster than these guys. That's
I'm in the same boat. I didn't actually vote for any of those guys, even though I think they're all great players.
With me, I voted.
But go on.
I voted for Simeon Rice and Neil Smith. I mean, unless you're John Turney, I don't know how many people are really passionate about Brian Young. Let's be real here.
The fact he was a finalist once is crazy to me.
Yeah, like with me, it's like I like them. I think at least some of them at least deserve consideration very strongly. But I just don't have the it's like we said before, like I have more passion for people in the 2s and the 1s than I do people like, Walker, Rice, Young, Smith, and O'Neal.
So we're starting to lose people because of the hour.
Yeah.
So let's pick. We'll do the same thing. 4 out of the remaining group, or the bottom tier.
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Okay.
Yeah, Wayne. Most of these guys were in your division with Smith, O'Neal.
Yeah.
Do you have anything for them while I'm figuring this out?
Just solid players. Didn't really like them, but they were yeoman players. Even the Brian Young there, I watched him when the Niners were having their heyday. He wasn't talked about, but he was one of those guys in the middle, stopping that run and just creating havoc up the middle. Neil Smith, a lot of hate stories about him, but just a solid player. But I wouldn't put him up in the top with these other guys group that we have over there. No.
What about Leslie O'Neal, Wayne?
Huh?
What about Leslie O'Neal? He was with the Chargers for many years.
Yeah. He was decent, man. Neil Smith was more of a pain in the ass than Leslie.
I think a lot of those guys,
Agreed.
their name is recognizable. You remember Neil Smith, you remember Leslie O'Neal, at least
I know them all.
you know, but I can't point to anything that was spectacular about them. And I
Right.
think that's why they've got partial votes where you know, some of these other people, you don't recognize their name, you know, but they may have been considerably better. It's kind of this is a strange phenomenon for me to have these particular people have more votes than some of the other 3s and 2s.
Like, yeah, I feel like we all feel more strong about Robert Mathis than we do about any of these guys.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's
the recency and name recognition. I think that also plays a big part of it. Also being on a team that also is more successful. And though to be fair, Neil Smith was a part of those Broncos teams.
Absolutely.
And
and I watched it for 2 years. He had one good year with the Broncos, but I mean, he may have contributed to that first Super Bowl, but he was a shell of his former self on that second one.
Yeah. The one person I guess I will say something for is Simeon Rice was a very, very important part of that Tampa Bay team in 2002.
Mhm.
But I don't know how many members of that 2002 defense, because Rondé's probably getting in this year or next couple of years. John Lynch is already in. Derek Brooks is already in. How many guys off of one championship defense are going to get? That's the only.
It wasn't really one team though. It was more so. I would argue that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Tampa 2 defense itself was very influential throughout the entire league. So a lot of people could say about, oh, it was just one championship. No, it's way deeper than just that. What Monty Kiffin designed is used by teams to this very, very day, and it's very influential in many defenses. And yes, for anyone asking, yes, Monty Kiffin is also on my list.
Yeah.
Anyone is curious.
Yeah.
All right. So we're voting for 4.
Yeah, we're gonna vote for 4. I guess we'll start. I guess I'll be the lone one for Walker, Cornelius, Neil Smith, and I'm torn between Tillman and Wolf. Vince Wolfer.
Okay. Is it me again?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for the 4 guys we brought up from before. So Willie, Tillman, Vince, and Cornelius.
Okay. Tom.
Tillman. Man, I really don't. It's hard. I mean, they're here to vote for. I don't think any of the rest of them should get my vote. But I'll go with Neil Smith. I guess Bennett and Willie McGinnis.
Okay. Wayne.
Tillman, Wilford, Bennett, and McGinnis.
Vinny.
Tillman, Bennett, and Simeon Rice. He's been a semi-finalist the last several years.
Was there one I missed? I only heard 3. I heard Tillman.
Oh
Bennett.
yeah, there's one more. I said Tillman, I said Rice, I said Bennett. Throw in Leslie O'Neal. I mean, he has a few years left in the ballot. Why not?
Okay.
Card.
You muted yourself, Greg.
Go Tillman, Rice, Bennett, and McGinnis.
Chris.
Leslie O'Neal, Neil Smith, I'll go Herschel. Give him a little love there and come back with Cornelius.
And Dan to close it off.
I will go with McGinnis, Wilfork, Tillman, and I don't really feel strongly about any of these guys. Bennett. No, sorry, Neil Smith would get my last vote.
Neil Smith. Okay. I think we're gonna have a tie here. Column A.
Also largest you put in.
Yeah, I saw. Oh yeah. So Bennett, Tillman, McGinnis, and we have a tie between Smith and Wilfork. Do you want to just advance them at this point? We can go from there.
Yeah, we'll advance all of them at this point.
Okay.
So we just have like a one last group to go through. And I think at that point, then we vote people in and then vote people out.
Yep. Okay. So at this point, we have two groups. We have 5s and 6s.
All right. Yeah. We'll treat them as one group.
Yeah.
So like with this one, do we want, what we could do is we could just sort of like take this entire pile just so that we can close this off. And I feel that we're not sort of doing justice, but I know that we've already hit the 2-hour mark at this point. Where we just like, we'll vote 4 through and then take 4 out. But I think we should just at least talk about these people at this point. Agreed?
Yep.
Okay. Anquan Bolden. Who wants anyone want to bring up anything on him? Another great wide receiver. So hard at this point.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to be muted here. Yeah, I'll bring him up. I mean, I can go through his stats and everything, but I think we kind of all. I mean, there were 7 years of 1,000-yard receiving. Plus he was paired with Larry Fitzgerald, so it was a pretty lethal combination during those Super Bowl years. But after, I'm kind of running low on gas here, so I could probably go on and on. But
don't forget his time with the Ravens Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that's the other. Yeah, that's he had a great career. Yeah, that's right. He got the Super Bowl ring with the Ravens. And part of the reason why he went to the Ravens, if I'm not mistaken, help me out, but I think part of it, he wanted to get out from under Larry Fitzgerald's shadow. He wanted to be the number 1 receiver. And in Arizona, he was only the number 2. And, a great number 2. And also there was his rookie year before Larry Fitzgerald came that he did set some rookie receiving record. So that's all I got.
Okay. I believe next was McNabb. I can just sort of
Rodney Harrison's next.
Rodney Harrison. Okay, sorry. Anyone on Rodney Harrison?
I will say Rodney. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say he went to Western Illinois University where I went. So that right there is a vote alone for me.
So Rodney Harrison, there are only 2 players in NFL history with 30 interceptions and 30 sacks, Ray Lewis and Rodney Harrison. And there was one year Rodney Harrison did not even get voted to the Pro Bowl, and he was first team All-Pro because he was so disliked by other players. He was voted dirtiest player in the league almost every year. Pro Bowl, as we all know, is a popularity contest. And once you get that reputation, and he did not help out guys from other teams. He taught his teammates how to pretend you're helping him up and yank his arm to hurt his shoulder. And he knew all those old tricks, and it did not make him popular in this generation by any means, but he was a beast of a player. And he was the key to the Patriots 2004 team, to me, is their best team. And him joining was a huge factor in that. And he easily could have gotten Super Bowl MVP that year.
Yeah.
I think he got my vote for it. And just to me, he's one of those guys where if you saw him play or your team was preparing to play the Patriots, you knew about him, you were scared of him, you were hoping he didn't hurt anyone, and he just made his presence known. So like Vince was talking about with those awards earlier and how they can be deceiving. I think Rodney Harrison is maybe the prime example of that, where he didn't always get the accolades he deserved, but
yeah,
to me, was just the stud of a player.
Yeah, let me just echo that. I would say that seeing as all those fines went to the fund for retired players, he was the most charitable player in the league because he was the most fined. But he also, not only with the time with the Patriots, we just talked about Leslie O'Neal. Junior Seau was the best player on those Chargers teams. Rodney Harrison was barely a step below. He was the second best player on those Chargers teams. The fact they got rid of him, he ended up in New England, was an absolutely amazing thing. His only mark you can have against him is he couldn't overcome the stigma on David Tyree's helmet. which still really bothers me. It's the last catch of that dude's career. But no, Rodney Harrison is just, I mean, talk about how unimportant Pro Bowls are, Vinny, for as a Patriots fan. Brandon Merriweather went to 2 Pro Bowls in his career. Rodney Harrison went to 1. Like,
I would say Rodney Harrison, to me, when it comes to those Patriots teams, he is the epitome of why those teams deserve to have more Hall of Famers than what the consensus, the quote unquote consensus, seemingly is. Because when you look at someone like Rodney Harrison, the fact that he has 30 sacks and 30 interceptions, something that only Ray Lewis has done, is astonishing as a safety. It tells you, like, what's funny how all this dirty stuff, isn't it funny how those same people that are upset about that are the same ones that always get upset when a player is soft in their eyes?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how that works? I find that's pretty interesting. Not only that, Rodney Harrison, listen, this is a guy that cared about winning more than anything else. He did not give a damn about what other teammates thought of him. He did not give a damn what the media thought about him. He just did what he did on a day-to-day basis, and that's what made him amazing. And when he was speaking to Dan Patrick, you could tell that he was pissed off at a lot of these, well, not only teammates, but especially the media that saw the Patriots as just, oh, it's only just Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. No. No, it's not. It's a whole bunch of guys. It's the Ty Laws. It's the Richard Seymours. It's the Vince Wilforks. It's the Wes Welkers. It's the Rob Gronkowski's. It's way more than just that. And don't forget, you can say about defense all you want, but, Belichick may have been the guy running it, but, especially when you win that many, don't you think you would have some guys that are up there in terms of all-time greats? In terms of the defensive backs other than Ty Law? Easily, Rodney Harrison is a no-brainer for me. And honestly, I would argue he's even better than Leroy Butler. That's how highly I view that's how highly I view Rodney Harrison as a safety. I think he is the best safety of this class. That's how highly I view him.
Just to echo those thoughts, Vince, the one thing that has bothered me as a Patriots fan, if you look at just Hall of Fame numbers, 60s Packers, 70s Steelers, 80s 49ers, 90s Cowboys, they are loaded with Hall of Famers. And not because they all have much better resumes than all of the Patriots. They, in large part, are Hall of Famers because they were parts of those championship teams.
They deserve it as well. I'm down with that.
And not saying any of them are undeserving, but to date, though, that first Patriots dynasty, if you call it that, the 2001, 2004 teams that won 3 championships, Ty Law is the only person in the Hall of Fame. I just find it shocking. And obviously Brady will get in. I assume Vinatieri will get in. But other than that, there's been nobody yet. And, Seymour, McGinnis, Harrison, all on the outside looking in still is surprising and disappointing.
All right. Should we move on to the 5s?
I want to say one thing.
Sorry, Tom.
Harrison.
Go ahead.
Just one thing. I don't like Rodney Harrison. I didn't vote for him. But he has 2 things going for him. Impact player with the San Diego Chargers. I don't consider him an impact player for the Patriots, but he helped the team win championships. So if I was going to vote somebody in, you'd have to look at that. You just have to. I mean, he was a good player for the Chargers, not as great for the Patriots, but he won championships with them. So that's my only thing. I'm not a big fan of Rodney Harrison in total, but I respect that what he contributed to the NFL.
All right. So let's move to the 5 so we can get going on this. Kirk.
Yeah. Donovan McNabb, just side note, Evan's heard this before on the website, promoted, not in halloffame.com, in the rankings that we currently have, it alters based on votes that come in. For reasons I do not understand, there's not one more hated player on people who visit than Donovan McNabb. I don't know why that is. I don't know why people hate him so much, but when McNabb said that his stats are similar to Aikman, he's right. Donovan really didn't have a whole lot of wide receivers. I'm not necessarily making his big case for him so much as just saying I think the hatred that he gets is unjustified. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if that's really where I want to go here with this any further, but if McNabb was a Cowboy and Aikman was an Eagle, I'm just saying there. I would McNabb already be in and Aikman not? Don't know. And I think that's a good question.
For sure.
I will say McNabb has more wins than any quarterback not in the Hall of Fame.
That is true. Also, he's been to as many NFC Championship games as Aaron Rodgers, 5. Also, the same record in NFC championships as well. 4 straight. 4 straight of them. 4 straight.
And he graduated from college with me.
Oh wow!
At Syracuse?
So I love Donovan McNabb. I went to Syracuse the same 4 years.
Wow.
So I definitely voted for him and definitely support him. And his quarterback class went 1, 2, 3 was Tim Couch, Donovan McNabb, Achilles Smith. So
they may have picked the right guy.
and he's the one that got booed by his fans.
Yes.
Pardon my French, but you know the expression "shit sandwich."
Right.
Usually it's like the shit's in the center, but instead
the lettuce on the side, the parsley on the side.
No, he was the meats. The other thing was like 2 moldy, filled mildew slices of bread, and you had the luxurious Wagyu beef burger patty in the center right there.
All right, should we move on?
Yeah.
I just
Ricky
want,
Water.
I'm going to say,
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
going to
Tom.
say, because I'm going to have to get going here pretty quick. So I'm sorry to jump in here. I am going to talk about Heinz Ward, but not for him.
Yes.
I cannot believe Heinz Ward has even came close to getting to the Hall of Fame as he has already. And there's a huge push for him. When I watched the Hall of Fame ceremony, he was mentioned 3 or 4 times in there. The dude was never the best wide receiver in the AFC ever. Not the NFL, never in the AFC. He played for the Steelers and he blocked pretty good. And he got an MVP in the Super Bowl, which, I mean, that happens. There's plenty of MVPs of the Super Bowl that are not Hall of Fame caliber players.
Deion Branch,
I cannot stand that fact that Heinz Ward is even getting close to the Hall of Fame. I mean, yeah, he's got some career stats in an era where receivers got tons of stats. He may not even been the best wide receiver in the AFC North or Central or whenever it was.
Central/North.
Yeah.
You had Jimmy Smith when the Jaguars were there.
Right. I just don't understand the love for Heinz Ward other than he's a Pittsburgh Steeler. I just don't get it.
Tom, Heinz Ward is my least favorite football player of all time.
Why is that?
He's a cheap shot art. So you talk about cheap shot artists maybe with Rodney Harrison. Heinz Ward is a massive cheap shot artist who whined about everything. I hate, like, if you're going to play dirty on the whatever side, Heinz Ward was what everyone complains about Italian soccer to me.
Hey, listen, Italian soccer, they just won the Euro League.
Yeah, I'm talking the league, not the team. I'm talking the league. Like it's the argument. I just could not stand Heinz Ward. But anyway.
Yeah, because I think we want to.
To me, there's no reason for him to be on this list. That's all I'm saying. Other than he was.
All right, so clearly none of us are the 5 because I didn't vote for him either.
Yeah. If I voted for him.
If I were to choose a pioneer for Asians in professional football, the easy choice would be Roman Gabriel, but he's not here. Yeah. And I'm not one to vote for Heinz Ward, so no, I didn't.
So do you want to make your Pat Swilling, Kirk? Because I
already did it.
You already did. I just want to vote before Tom gets out here. He's only got
I agree. The only thing I want to say is that if you haven't sort of looked at Willie Anderson, do so. The Bengals community put out a really good thing about how few sacks he allowed, and considering what was around him for all that period of time, Willie is someone who I did vote for. But yeah, I think we should move on and just
And I will just reiterate one last time. When Henry Ellard retired, he was second all time in catches and receiving yards.
All right. So,
And then
what we
everything
should,
exploded.
so I think we
Vote.
should wrap up everything now. So with this big group that we have left, let's vote 4 in and take 4 out, see who we have left. So the first vote will be, we're going to be picking our 4 that we want in to join the 16 that we already have. With what's left, then we're going to be voting 4 people out that will not be considered. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're down to 7. So I want to make sure that Tom, I respect your opinion a lot. I will make sure you get a vote in here before you
Oh,
get out of
I
here.
appreciate that. Thank you. And the funny thing is, I only have one person that I'm passionate about, and he's no longer in the process. So
Yeah.
it's,
No.
it's a bummer. Next year we're gonna have to have some more Broncos in here.
Fair enough. All right. So Kirk, you want to start?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Sorry. Let me do it by position again. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay, we're good. Go ahead.
So I apologize. Is this everybody left that is not already through?
Correct. Everyone who's not eliminated or through. Yeah. So we're going to put 4 of them in and then do this again, eliminate 4 and go back and forth. So,
Okay.
My 4 are Donovan McNabb. Also, I'm going to be going with Cornelius Bennett, Pat Swilling, and Willie Anderson.
just trying to find everybody.
Yep.
All right. Vinny.
My choices are I would
Did he
go
freeze?
Willie Anderson,
Okay.
Cornelius Bennett,
Mm-hmm.
Henry Ellard, and then Rodney Harrison.
Okay. Tom.
Willie Anderson, Charles Tillman, Henry Ellard, and I'm not really passionate about anybody else, but I'm going to go with Pat Swilling.
Yeah.
Chris.
All right. Henry Ellard, all day. Willie Anderson, Pat Swilling, and Neil Smith.
Wayne.
Tillman, McGinnis, Wilfoot, and Pat Swilling.
Dan.
McGinnis, Will Fork, Harrison, Saturday.
Jeff Saturday. Okay. I will go with Henry Ellard. I'll go Cornelius Bennett, Willie, and what else we got here?
Braves just won the World Series, guys.
First time in 29 years. First time in your lifetime, Vinny.
Yeah, first time. I'm not a Braves fan. I have
That's
a lot of
nuts.
friends in Atlanta though, but just
And-
I'm so happy for
I
them.
remember, I remember watching
I'll go
them when I
Pat
was
Swilling.
younger, and their pitching staff that they had, and they couldn't win it all. Just surprised
Jay.
the hell out of me.
Yep.
Yeah, so after doing that, our 4.
So this brings us
We got
to,
a tie between Bennett and
all right. So why don't we just put those 3? Okay.
we can do the 3 if you want.
You know what? If they got that far, we're gonna keep voting him in. So let's just put those Bennett and McGinnis in, and then
Okay.
we're at 21.
That's fine.
I'm
I
sorry to
understand.
do this because I know we're pressed for time. Why is Jeff Saturday getting so much Hall of Fame love from people?
Because there's
that
not a
voted
lot
for
of
him?
centers left. That would be my.
My choice would be Tom Nalen, but no.
Well, yeah, I know, but he seems to be getting a lot of votes, and it just, I mean, it's
The
weird.
back
I just want
play
a
with
different
Peyton.
perspective. Just a different
Popular because
perspective.
he played with Peyton.
Yeah.
Yeah, he benefited from Peyton for sure. I mean, absolutely. But I don't think he was as good a center as I think Peyton made his offensive line so much better than what they are. I just don't know. I just wanted a perspective for Saturday. I don't see it. I mean, I like him. He's a good center. I just don't see him as a Hall of Famer. He's borderline for me. That's all.
I'm gonna move this down so I can.
That's that. From the whole thing when I was talking earlier, is I want to hear from those fans, the people that loved them and researched them and could understand why they were so good. I don't see it with Saturday for Saturday.
I think also too, as we're sort of going forward, I'm hoping that we're also going to add some other people as this sort of goes on. So I think there'll be some more people that weren't here for this group, and just try and diversify the fan base. And I'm sure we can find some others.
Yeah, absolutely. Small markets would be great too, because you got plenty of people that know everything about the East Coast teams and they watch them a lot. But like Indianapolis, people loved it when Peyton was there. I get it, and he was at the Broncos, and he made that offensive line for the Broncos so much better than they ever were, ever. So it's just interesting that, because when we did this last time, nobody cared about Tom Nailon except me, but several people care about Jeff Saturday, and they're not even Colts fans. So it's just odd.
I will say I watched the Colts a ton when he played. He was their only offensive lineman. And I know we're saying like Manning made the offensive line look better, which is true, but try to name one other offensive lineman from those Colts teams.
It's true.
He's the guy.
It's true. It's true.
He represents the Colts offensive line.
To me. I got that. But I guess if Peyton hadn't been there, would we be talking about Jeff Saturday at all?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I feel like
Probably
we could play that with just about everyone here, though.
Yeah, but
to
some extent. I guess if I'm looking at Olin, who's a center, or Tom Nailon, who's a center, they played with people like a quarterback like Brian Greasy, and I can't even name a Bears quarterback when Olin Krutz
I'll name you one.
Sexy Rexy, anyone?
All right.
Rex Grossman, as a 40-year-old, 42-year-old, Rex Grossman is probably the fourth best quarterback of the Bears during my lifetime.
I know it's crazy.
Crazy.
Think about.
They haven't had
they
someone
had
as good
success.
as.
They won a Super Bowl. I just wanted a perspective from on Saturday.
All right.
They're still looking for their next Sid Luckman.
All right. So at this point, let's take 4 out.
Yeah. So we're voting out against people now. So who do you think is the 4 people on this list you'd want out? So go ahead, Kirk.
All right. I'm taking out Ricky Waters begrudgingly. I'll also be taking out Jeff Saturday. Again, begrudgingly. Not begrudgingly Hines Ward. I agree with a lot of you here. He's never been one of my top 25. And my 4th person out at this point is, this is where it gets really hard. Those 3 were easy. Darren Woodson, because I have to pick someone.
Okay. Vinny?
Well, I'm obviously going to take out Hines Ward. I mean, haven't we all already decided that he was the worst player in NFL history?
No, I did say that. I did say he was the worst.
I didn't say that either.
I watched
hyperbole, Evan. Hyperbole.
I watched a team that once had Scott Sequels taking snaps. So, believe me.
Yeah, that's true. Hines Ward, obviously. I would say, take out Saturday, even though I did vote for him. I'm kind of changing my mind a little bit. Maybe also take out McNabb. I mean, without Cunningham, it's hard for me to really push for McNabb. And then for the last one, I would say take out maybe take out Steve Smith potentially. Like, see, I'm not really super passionate, or I'm very middle of the road, but yeah.
Tom?
I think taking them out is easier for me than putting them in, but so Hines Ward for sure is gone. Ricky Waters, Darren Woodson, easy, and well, I guess it's not as easy as I thought. Steve Smith.
Chris?
Hines Ward, agree with everybody there. Ricky Waters, Darren Woodson, and Devin Hester.
Wayne.
Got Heinz Ward, Ricky Waters, Devin Hester, and Richmond Webb.
Dan.
Next time I'm gonna have to talk less so I have time for Ricky Waters' speech because I do love him. I am gonna vote for Heinz Ward, Devin Hester, Darren Woodson, and Neil Smith.
Okay. I am going to vote Darren Woodson, Donovan McNabb, Heinz Ward twice, and I think Neil Smith is my other one. So, and I'm trying to vote so I'm not like gaming the system here. You know what I mean? Like actually who I'd vote for if I'm going last. So
I think we've all been doing that, which has been pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any politics in this. And I'll tell you, I've heard a lot of crazy stories about the politics in the actual Hall of Fame vote.
It's
nuts.
It's very like whoever tells you it isn't political, bruh. Everything is political. I can look at this pencil and I can go into detail about it. Oh, the wood of the pencil. Oh, the environment. Oh, the rubber, the metal.
Hester, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Everything I would argue is political. That's a big reason why I've advocated for a lot of these committees, mainly because, I mean, pre-NFL,
there's nothing less political than a committee.
Yeah, exactly.
That is true. Okay, how about this?
Let's
think of a better term than a committee. Then,
everything's political, but they get their feelings hurt about weird stuff, and then
they
don't vote people in, which is worse than being
you should see what it was like for like John Turney. I mean, this guy's one of the biggest suck ups you can possibly imagine because he desperately wants to, and like whenever I suggest anyone, like he completely says no all the time. Like, bro, come on, just give me a chance. Jesus Christ, like.
Oh, I mean, like, there's been times where people get on the voters get mad because somebody suggests something, like the actual voters, and then they do for that person, which is kind of weird. Like, if you want to be impartial, I mean, I get like people are passionate about their fandom, but if you want to be impartial, you vote for the person that you think is the best player, not because somebody showed you something that made you look like an idiot, and now you're not going to vote for them. It's crazy. Like I mean, I'll bring up a Randy Gradishar. From what I've understood is like they went back and validated his tackle numbers, and they got pissed that they validated tackle numbers, and so they're like, well, then we're not putting him in.
Did you hear?
That. I don't know if that's true. That's what I've heard.
I wouldn't pull it past. Also, did you hear that apparently they're not very keen on like Ken Riley or Ken Anderson because they play for the Bengals? Yeah, Peter King even admitted that blatantly on. And Bengals fans, I'm so happy they did. They went after him. Like, listen, Bengals fans, I absolutely adore every single one of you guys. Like, Mike Florio was trying to call them racist. No, he was legit trying to call them racist because their rally outside of Canton was on Juneteenth. Like, even though this was something that was playing almost a year before all this stuff, and now you're trying to smear them and call them racist.
Florio knows less about football than almost any national.
One thing about Ken Anderson, which is I ended up going back in history and taking everybody's quarterback seasons and comparing them to the era analytically. And I have it on. I have an article you guys can look. It was mostly about. It was kind of like looking back at Drew Lock and seeing what he could do. Ken Anderson is the one quarterback that's not in the Hall of Fame that has multiple best seasons for the era.
Yeah.
I mean, none of the other quarterbacks that aren't in the Hall of Fame have more. Like it's crazy. The reason that he's not in is mind-boggling to me because he's.
I'll tell you the reason why. It's because he's a Bengal. They even admitted it. The reason why
I
he's not
get
is
it. I
because he
mean,
plays
the
for the
Bengals
Bengals.
have not had great success. I get it. I mean, I understand that you got to have a team. You got to put together a team, and you got to have success, and that comes with a lot of players. But I mean, Ken Anderson, adjusted for era, is one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. Really, he really is.
Noser Thomas. So I gotta say this. One of my people that follow me, one of the people that in charge of it, Tom. No, not you, Tom. Someone else. He actually sent me this whole shirt of Jungle to the Hall because they thanked me for making it what it was, and even has all the names of people they won on the back, like Anderson, Riley, Parrish, Willie Anderson, Isaac Curtis, like a lot of those names.
Yeah, no one's ever sent me shit.
Yeah, what's the deal? I mean, they have two legitimate gripes, in my opinion. Legitimate.
If any team,
Anderson.
If any team deserves to say issues with the Hall,
Cincinnati.
and don't get me wrong, the Raiders, the Raiders, I believe, need to. The Broncos do, consider the Patriots. But if there's one team, it's easily the Bengals. Yeah. Not a single doubt in my mind. It is the Bengals. And, I even though I was very happy for Cliff Branch that he did make it, I really did feel bad for a lot of the Bengals fans because from what the voters were trying to sway them for, it seemed like Ken Riley was a shoo-in for the choice. And it just didn't happen. It was the same thing I felt when it came to the coaches. Like they were saying, oh, you're going to see Buddy Parker. You're going to finally see Buddy Parker. And I was so excited for Buddy Parker. And it's Dick Vermeil. And I'm like, you lied to me.
The problem is there's just too many players from yesteryear that aren't in. Too many senior candidates. You're never my problem with it is you're going to see so many of these senior candidates who some of them are already deceased, but many of them are going to be deceased before they even get in. It's a travesty. And I can name 40 easily, probably off the top of my head, 40 senior candidates that are more worthy than the people we're talking about here. Most of them should be in the Hall of Fame. And one a year, it's going to take forever to get some of these people in.
It's not even going to happen at all unless they.
Some of them will never get in. Some of them will never get in and deserving. And it's a shame. It really is because they ignored so many teams for so long. And I mean, I'm a Broncos fan. I understand, and I hate to keep bringing up Broncos, but
you deserve to.
The first Hall of Famer for the Broncos was John Elway in 2004. They went to 6 Super Bowls until in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and not one player gets in. So they have a huge backlog, and it's a shame. I mean, like Carl Mecklenburg. I cannot wait for the day for him to get in the Hall of Fame, but I'm so worried that I'm going to be dead before he gets in the Hall of Fame.
Well, what we need to do is we need to continue pushing down their throat about trying to get those larger classes. I know I'm saying this a lot, but if you want to make sure you get what you want, you got to push for larger classes. With Jim Porter coming in, we got to push for 10-person classes. No, none of this 8-person class.
But if we don't finish this up, 40 more people are going to die.
Yeah, it's
So
exactly.
We got to finish. I was trying to get to that. You guys were.
I'm really sorry to derail. And
it's okay.
It's good debate.
I'm a passionate person about Hall of Fame.
So it's we got 9 people left. We got how many spots left do we have?
I think
we have 4 spots and 9 people.
All right, so then we're voting for.
Out of which list? This vote 7 list?
This vote 7 here. Saturdays.
I thought we took these. Oh, sorry. I thought we took them up. Go ahead.
No, so these are the ones remaining. So after, so we voted out Ward, Woodson, Waters, and Hester. So Saturday and Neil Smith, McNabb, and Steve Smith all survived. So now we are voting for 4 to get us to the final bit. That's what you want to do?
Yeah.
One last vote?
One last vote. This is our final vote. Final vote of the evening.
All right. Kirk, lead us off.
All right. I will be picking Richmond Webb, Donovan McNabb, Anquan Bolden, Charles Tillman.
Okay. Vinny.
I'm going to go with I'm going to go Rodney Harrison, Neil Smith, Charles Tillman, and Richmond Webb.
Tom.
Tillman, Smith, I'll go with McNabb and Bolden.
Chris.
Neil Smith, Richmond Webb, Donovan McNabb, and Jeff Saturday.
Wayne.
I've got Vince Wilfork, Anquan Bolden, Charles Tillman, and Rodney Harrison.
Dan.
I'll take Vince Wilfork, Rodney Harrison, Donovan McNabb, and a lot of good ones. You guys have talked me into a few. I'm going to go Anquan Bolden.
Interesting. All right. So I'm going to finish this off. I'm going to vote for Harrison. I'm going to vote for Tillman. I would say that crap. I'm just not a McNabb guy. I think Richmond and I guess the other vote doesn't really matter. I'll vote for Steve Smith. I still think Steve Smith deserves a little bit of love. So column D, largest to smallest. We're gonna have a tie here for the last spot. We have a four-way tie. We have five. We have five here. We have a four-way tie. Do we just do 26? Let's just do 26, Kirk.
Or everyone can vote.
I think we're
one
fine with
person
that.
out.
Yeah, because for those who weren't part of it last year, what we wound up doing anyway, we took our 25 and we used the actual Hall's 25 and we put them in a greater pool for when we sort of pared it down to 15. So yeah, I think we're fine with that.
Okay. So we'll just do that. So we have one extra. This is the long one, guys. So the next one hopefully won't be quite as
It'll be a lot
taxing.
quicker.
Guys, breaking news. Henry Ruggs was just cut from the Raiders.
Not surprising.
Okay.
Yeah,
Don't kill your girlfriend in a car crash.
Yeah. And I mean, particularly since he kneels after every touchdown to honor his friend who died in a car crash.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
what he
true?
does. He did it back in Alabama. He does it for the Raiders. Like it's just, it's just dumb.
I guess I know my elevator down.
Never
Huh?
driven drunk.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Wayne, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, for the
I
Raiders.
was expecting to hear that, but not tonight. But I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing you
That's
can
a
do.
rough-
This is
rough
not back
thing.
when Leonard Little killed somebody and nobody cared. Those are-
Right. I remember that one.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. There's a name I haven't heard.
Yeah, he killed someone with his car, and I think he got suspended for. I can't remember how long he got suspended. It was not very long though.
This guy will do jail time and get a civil lawsuit. The whole.
Oh yeah, it's 2 to 20 years in Nevada.
Yeah.
For
But his
Very,
his
very
career is
sad.
pretty much done. I think though. 22 years old, he'll have to find something else to do. Nobody will touch him.
Yeah. All right. So let me just get everybody else here. So Tillman. Hold on. So who do we have here? Tillman. Let's get everybody on the back page. So we got everybody here. Richmond Webb. Everybody. Richmond Webb. Don
All right, so
McNabb.
while you're
Thanks,
doing
guys.
that,
I'm gonna.
thank
I'm
you
gonna
all for being a
jump
part
off.
of this.
I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks,
it.
Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
We'll give a wrap up here quick.
Right.
But thanks, Tom.
Take care.
Yeah, Tom.
Thank you,
Tom.
Tom. Great
Yeah,
meeting you.
Tom.
Yeah, it was nice meeting everybody.
McNabb and Bolden.
Yeah, and I think on behalf of Evan, like we're really happy that we had so many people join us, a lot of new people, and we're hoping to grow this a lot. So for those listening, watching, and you want to be a part of this, please do. Especially if you're representing a fan base that maybe we're not covering, because the differing point of views made this a lot more different than last year. It's a fun thing for us. We're geeking out. We love this.
Yeah, I was in Nashville at the beginning of the month of last month, and I was hanging out with people from all over the country who did a Spartan race. And one of the guys I was there was with a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, which I was not sure existed. And it was just really cool watching a Jaguars game with somebody, because that was the Thursday night game. the Jaguars game on Thursday night with someone who was super into it was kind of hilarious. So it was great. So if you guys are passionate about a team, please join us. So, all right. So here's who we ended up with. So Torrey Holt, Lemmings, we'll go by position again. So data sort, column A to Z. There we go. So we have 2 corners, Charles Tillman and Rondé Barber. 3 defensive ends, Jared Allen, Kevin Williams, Richard Seymour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 linebackers. Cornelius Bennett, DeMarcus Ware, Pat Swilling, Patrick Willis, Sam Mills, Willie McGinnis, and Zach Thomas. We have 4 tackles, Richmond Webb, Steve Wisniewski, Tony Baselli, Willie Anderson. 1 quarterback, Donovan McNabb. 1 running back, Sean Alexander. 2 safeties in Leroy Butler and Rodney Harrison. 1 special teamer in Steve Tasker. And 5 wide receivers, Andre Johnson, Anquan Bolden, Henry Ellard, Reggie Wayne, and Torrey Holt. I'm honestly thought those are not the 5 wide receivers I thought we we're going to end up with. So there we go.
Yeah, it's probably. I'm sure that the 25 that Canton's going to come up with will be very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tells you
Very
the
much.
disconnect between the media or the voters themselves and the actual, average public. Like in
Like us.
general,
Yeah.
Like us.
yes, the average, the people that in the know or the people that know. Like that's no disrespect to the voters, but I mean, I think what this also kind of shows is that I know I'm like beating a dead horse here, but I think it just kind of shows that there is a real disconnect between the people that care about the hall and the people that vote on the hall. And I think, especially with the increase of the internet, and I would also say this website, I would say it's shown that there is a lot of kinks that need to be ironed out, and just putting a bandage over it and just staying the status quo is not going to do it for many people. That's a big thing that I've decided to know. Now, everyone has their own idea of what they want to do, but the consensus at the same time, the consensus is that there needs to be a change. As simple as that. And I think everyone here is in agreement with that.
We're not going to gain any points from Pittsburgh. I know that much.
They get a lot already.
Yeah, Steelers fans, you might want somebody here because we are not on the Ward bandwagon. So
Hey, listen, I want to
otherwise.
have someone from every single team here
That'd be
because
great.
here's a
that'd be
fun thing
great.
I just found out. Did you know the Associated Press for the actual people that vote on the All Pros? Did you know that there's not a single person that represents Detroit in that room for the All Pros?
Really?
Yeah, for Associated Press, there's not a single person from Detroit. 0 people.
Well,
It tells you that they aren't as unbiased as you think.
yeah.
I think they would do well to follow our example, which was also listening to each other and being open to having your minds change. Because I know I got convinced of a couple of things along the way tonight. So thank
It
you all
happened-
for letting me be a part of it. I really, really enjoyed it and really appreciate it.
Thank you
Oh,
for
damn.
being
We
Same
we
here.
loved having you on. Like you gave us this perspective of, I loved your perspective, honestly. I loved how it was very aware of the importance of winning, but also it felt very genuine. It didn't feel like a homer to you. It really did feel like a genuine person that did care about, the winning aspect as well. And I really do appreciate that.
I also learned that you can tell Boston people by their hats.
Of course.
It's true enough.
I live in Chicago now, but the hat's still the same, my friend.
That sticks. I got a whole collection over here. If you guys need one next round.
What do they call it? The Andy Cap hats or something like that?
No, or Irish
These are the
drivers,
Scally, Boston
cap.
Scally.
Yeah, Scally cap. So
Andy Cap's an old British cartoon, newspaper cartoon, in case anyone's curious.
yeah, he's got with the hot fries. So
All right.
anyway, guys,
Yeah.
thanks very much.
All
You
right.
wanna
Thank
wrap
you all
up,
so
Kirk?
much.
Got
All
it,
right.
guys.
See you all in a month.
You got it.
And we'll be shorter. We'll only have 26 to talk about instead of 123.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, it was fun. I enjoyed all you guys here, and hopefully
Great stuff.
we see you next month. And for you, Kirk, and for you, Evan, I'll see you and on
Yeah.
Twitter in a couple.
Oh
minutes.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, by that time, I think we should put the over and under. How many people have blocked Vinny between now and the time we meet again?
So all right. Talk to you later, guys. Good
Right,
night.
bye.
Thanks.
Good night, guys.